Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Mayor Green and myself and my fellow commissioners, I'd like to welcome everyone here on this Wednesday, February 14th, 2018. It is 9 o'clock. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. My voice is a little scratchy this morning. I haven't talked before I got here, so I didn't realize that. I apologize. I would like to call this regular meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Steve Green is absent. Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Here.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Here.
Honorable Ralph Keschler.
Here.
Honorable Joshua Franco.
Present.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like the record to reflect that Mayor Green is sick today and unable to attend. He is listening. Welcome, Steve, via telephone and radio. At this time, I would like to ask you all to please join me in 15 seconds of silent meditation. Thank you. Renee, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on our agenda this morning is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve said agenda?
Madam Mayor, would you please remove number 1 from consent calendar F to be voted on by the commission separately? I was not at that minute.
Okay.
Not at that meeting.
You will take off I-4.
And take off I-4, discussion action, branding of truth or consequences as the subject for the Mayor, Steve Green.
Completely remove that one. Okay.
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to amend the agenda as noted by Commissioner Clark and seconded by Commissioner Franco. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is item C, comments from the public. Remember your 3-minute limit. We ask that you state your name and address, and any correspondence that needs to be given to the commissioners, please place it in the black box next to the microphone. Any public comment at this time?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Whitehead and council. My name is Cale Thomas. I reside at 1715 Cary Street. I own a business, Thomas & Sons. I work on cars, automobiles, and boats. I have resided there for 4 years. I bought the business as a business. It has been a business for 20 to 30 years. And I've lived there for 4 years with no problems. I've been at peace with my neighbors. I've been trying to be an honest, peaceable citizen. I try to do my best to pay my bills and my taxes. I do make mistakes though. Was very peaceable there until about 7 months ago when I have had a new neighbor that has moved in. And ever since that time, I have had nothing but harassment for the most part. He's harassed my children, my customers. He's caused me quite a bit of grief. I've tried to be a good neighbor. I lent him my forklift when he moved in. When I complained about the dirt road blowing, I had my boy go out to water the road, and he complained and fussed about him watering the road, said that he made him making puddles and didn't want him watering the road. I'm generally a peaceable citizen, and I do not like to cause problems, but I think it's my duty to stand up for my rights. He's harassed one of my customers that's here, threatened him in my shop. I had to send him out of my shop because he threatened my customer. He's going to stand up here in just a minute to do that. I want to be a peaceable citizen. I want to pay my taxes and I want to run my business. I bought that place as a business. And I've been to the code enforcement office on numerous times and asked them if I'm doing anything wrong to let me know, to help me with that. And they've showed me everything that I need to do, and I've been trying my best in my duty to do that. I appreciate you for hearing me. Thank you. And
Thank
then
you.
what do I need to set in here?
If you have any correspondence that you need to give to the commissioners, just place in the box. Thank you. Do we have any other public comment at this time?
Hello, my name is Jesus, but I'm here for Kel Thomas. He's been my mechanic for about 3 years, and I was a customer that was there that his neighbor came up and threatened me. I was driving down the road, and then he came up saying if I drive that fast, that he's not going to call police, he's going to take care of it. And I asked him, what does that mean? And he's like, well, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And so I was like, okay. And he just got really, really, I don't know, he's crazy-eyed, and he was just, I didn't know what to do. And so Kel told him to leave, and he left. So I'm just here to tell him that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Becker. I live at 613 Ivy. I've resided in TRC for about 4 years. Okay, people. This could be political or controversial or not in the best interest of the community. So you probably won't read about this in either newspaper. Though the Sentinel did print this article in the February 9th edition announcing the already passed January 26th hearing on the Spaceport Authority seeking confidentiality exemption from inspection of public records. Could that be to conceal details on the $10 million spaceport hangar New Mexico just approved? Is it possible they will be secreting weapons of mass destruction, even nuclear or toxic chemicals, even biological warfare fed to us by chemtrails sponsored by big pharmas? Testing of new flu strands? Besides, where is the $10 million coming from? What else might they want to hide from us, the public? And why would we allow it without a contest? This is 20 miles from TRC. Has this all turned into a fascist regime? Must we, the people, give up all the hope that the American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, having already been stolen from us by our government, can be restored to us by reasonable leadership working for the highest good of the and all concerned? And we all are concerned. People, thank you for listening to me. Pray about it. Do we have the right to be heard? And yes, I believe we do have the right to be heard. We all do. We all have the right to our own opinion. And we need to get more people involved in this community and think about TRC and do things that need to be done in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becker.
Good morning. My name is Phyllis Mecca, and I live at 1708 Cary Street. And I'm here on behalf of my neighbor, Cal. So my family and I moved into the rodeo arena area about 18 years ago. We were aware that there was an operational shop down the street and also a junkyard on the corner. Knowing this, we still chose to move into that neighborhood. Over the last 18 years, all the neighbors have helped each other. We've borrowed equipment, watched out for each other's property, and mowed each other's easements between the city and our property. And the list goes on. Last year, when my 80-foot cottonwood tree fell in a windstorm and blocked the road, the neighbors rallied together with their chainsaws, wood chippers, and a loader to help us remove the tree and clean up the mess. Within the last 7 months, we had a new neighbor move in. He has accused us, visitors, and other neighbors of driving too fast down the road and making dust. It is a dirt road, and we are in a drought. It is less than a football field from the corner of the street to my driveway. It is not feasible to reach 25 miles an hour before turning into my driveway. Even when you drive slow, there is dust. He has put large rocks in the road, which is a public safety hazard. After several weeks, I removed the rocks to prevent any damage to vehicles or rocks popping up, hitting children that are walking to and from the bus stop. Mr. Thomas has bladed the road when needed. He's also watered the road, but was told by Mr. Stanley not to water it because it was leaving puddles. He has yelled at my dogs to shut up when they are barking. My dogs in the last 2 years have brought 2 individuals that were looking to burglarize neighboring homes into custody, and they were sentenced for their actions. In addition, these individuals had drugs in their possession. It has also been brought to my attention that Mr. Stanley has been taking pictures of the neighborhood children. As a parent, grandparent, foster parent, and former child abuse and neglect investigator, this is very concerning behavior. The shop at the end of Carey Street does not produce any excess traffic. It is not loud. They're not open late at night or early mornings. In closing, this is not a neighborhood problem. It is a Stanley Rickert problem. All we are trying to do in our neighborhood is live peacefully, raise our family, be neighborly, and contributing members of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mecca. Any other public comment at this time?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Harv Kleinsteiger, live at 818 North Pershing. I've been a resident of this area since 1979, and my comments are very positive today for you gentlemen and ladies to do what you can to improve our city golf course. We have had one of the best municipal golf courses in this area 3 years ago, and in the past 3 years it has started going downhill. Some of this is not the manager's problem, it's the commissioner's problem. If you don't insist that whoever runs the golf course runs it properly, it's going to continue to go downhill. One of the problems the city has is ample amount of water. The water system has been inadequate for over 6 years. The prior city or golf course manager had a constant problem with fresh water. For over a year now, we have not had fresh water. When we bring it up to Juan, there's always an excuse. The excuse doesn't water the ground. And excuses just keep going on and on and on. So no matter who you make as a golf course manager, if they don't have the water, they can't do their job. The other thing is, if you're making a month-to-month decision about who's going to manage it, when are we going to have a Truth or Consequences Fiesta golf tournament again? This is a big attraction for this area. Every year we bring people in from all over the area. We have not had these golf tournaments that bring people into our community and see how great we are. We don't want to see this golf course closed. But the way it's going, if you're not going to improve what you have, it's definitely going to close because there's less and less play. People are not enjoying coming in. We have 2 golf courses in our community, one at the lake, one here. The TRC Fiesta tournament should be here with the cooperation out there. Let's work together to make this a better golf course and get some things timely done. It's a month-to-month contract is not the way to operate. Let's, you people, make a decision to get our golf course going in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alvon Trujillo, 506 West 3rd Street. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Last week, I sent an email to all commissioners regarding the renewal of the contract for the management of the municipal golf course. I stated in that email that there are two reasons why the commission should not renew the contract. First, the contract expired over a year ago on January 27, 2017. It expired and the city failed to issue a written modification to extend the contract, and contracts in New Mexico entered into by a municipality cannot be extended once the termination date has been reached. Second, the condition of the greens and the fairway at the municipal course do not warrant a contract being extended, nor does the attendance of the person managing it. He spends very little time there. I've already shared this information with both local newspapers. Today, I want to direct my comments on the need for the city to have a management review conducted by an outside contractor. The golf management contract is but one of the problems with enforcing contracts. To name a few awards, the city has been negligent in providing good stewardship. I can recall the contract issued for legal services, which was extended twice past its 4-year term. Extending a lease for the Liebel Johnson Center Recreation Center with Follow the Sun tours after the expiration date of the lease, announcing the lease of the Liebel Johnson Recreation Center without requiring the requirements of State Statute 354-1. The specific problems I just mentioned are but a portion of the management issues. There are others, management issues, and a management review is needed. These include having or not having a planning and zoning committee with members for over 2 years, not following ordinances regarding ordinances that were created committees and which are not functioning, which are not seen to be seen as a priority. For instance, the Personnel Board and the Convention Center and Entertainment Board. We have an ordinance in place that requires the city to have special accounts set up for impact fees collected from developers, and these have not been set aside and used as required by ordinance and state statutes. We have also a special GTR that was set up in 2012 to support our police officers. These funds have not been used to support our police department in terms of no higher salaries and no improved benefits. We have department heads who do not initiate, control, and manage all of the contracts and grants that fall under their purview. Moreover, we still have a city staff that are not provided with written annual work objectives at the start of their rating period, and employees as recently as last year who did not receive an annual employee evaluation. I want to be clear, I'm not contending that any city commissioner or city manager is mismanaging the resources out of self-aggrandizement. Rather, I'm contending that the city has mismanaged our resources and has not followed state and procurement regulations, existing ordinance, good stewardship, and good management practices. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rick Massengale. I live at 1715 Carey Street, across from Kel Thomas. I'm here to support him in his business. I've been on that street for 29 years, so I've been there longer than anybody. And Kel has always had the business there. There was a business there when I moved there 29 years ago. It's always been mechanic business or contract business. And Kel's a super good neighbor. He loves and supports everybody. He does a great business. He'll go out of his way to help anybody. And I echo the comments of all the other neighbors since Stanley moved in down the street. Nobody likes somebody standing out there waving at you to slow down when nobody's speeding on the street because of the dirt. It's always been a dirt road. It'll probably continue to be a dirt road. And I just want to support Kel in his business. He should be grandfathered again with his business. And I thank you.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? Steve Zeski, 1019 Parway. Just want to start off with I told you so about the brewery. You know, the other night, Sunday afternoon, I'm driving down Broadway. It's all kinds of cars out in front of the brewery and in the brewery. And you know, when I first started coming down here for winter 6 years ago, you could shoot a cannon off on Sunday afternoon down on Broadway because nobody used to be down there. I'm actually down here because, as much as it pains me, I actually agree with Mr. Ashborough's last ad in the paper. I'm sure You guys probably seen it. Second ad, I don't really care about because, in fact, no new houses have been built here. Ain't your fault. People don't want to come here. People don't want to come here. But this whole thing about the meters, and you're gonna get smart meters. You're gonna fix the water meters. You're gonna borrow $20 million, and it's gonna pay it back at $40,000 a month over the next however many years. Spend that money on the sewers. You know, forget about that. Forget about that whole smart meter thing because, you know, yeah, you need more money. The smart meters will give you more accurate billing, but, you know, $40,000 a month for however many years that was, 10. My wife threw the ad out, so I didn't have a chance to review it down here. Fix a lot of sewers for that. You know, 3-4 years ago, I was down here. There's a hydrant. I lived at the end of Parway, and there's a hydrant there. I got up one morning to go out there and have coffee. The fire hydrant was running. So I had coffee, I went in, rode the bike, came back out, fire hydrant was still running. So about 1 in the afternoon, after the fire hydrant had been running about 4 hours, and this is in the desert where water is short, I called the water people, and they're like, oh, we're working on a main 3 blocks away, and we can't shut it off, so this is the only way to keep the water pressure down so we can work on the main over on Yucca or Spruce or wherever they're working on the main. So if your stuff is in that bad a shape that you got to run a fire hydrant in the desert in an area where we've been in drought for 12 out of the last 15 years is the only way you can work on other parts of the system, you need to work on other parts of the system. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, folks. My name is Howie Tucker. I live on 1800 3rd Street in town. I would like to let you know that we do, even though you get a lot of heat, we do appreciate your service. I'm going to comment on one thing about the golf course, which I used to be professional at and a manager. And I compliment Terry, even though he gets a lot of heat. It's a tough job. And we need, whoever you get there, the city needs the help. I'm talking about from the word go. Utilities, smiles, whatever you can do. It's a tough job. Economic development you need in this town, you need that golf course. You guys need to be happy with the golf course, and you need to advertise a golf course. I fought that for many years when I was at the golf course. Who knows about TRC New Mexico? Who? Have you guys helped it? Grocery receipt tax helped? Have they? Have you put any ads in any papers about how wonderful our weather is when Wisconsin is 12 below zero? Something. It's tough. You got a great town, you got great surroundings, you got everything in the world, stars at night, fun place. Sell this place. I will do anything in the world to help you guys. I'll even submit a resume if you come out with an RFP. I worked my butt off for 8 years. I can do it again. But boy, I'll tell you one thing. We got ahead. Those people's help, which we appreciate, his help, yours, boom, boom, all of you. It's got to be a community thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ike Eastfold. I reside at 1301 North Silver. And I'll just say what we're trying to do in creating a conservancy is a quality of life issue which can attract professionals to this area. I think the more of that type of thing you have here, the more professional people you can attract. I heard that the expansion of the Veterans Hospital, they could not attract professionals. Nobody wanted to come to TRC. Well, you have tremendous resources here in terms of the Chowan Desert. And what we're trying to do is set aside an area which can be developed for ecotourism and for education of the schools. And that is something that would be really unique for TRC. And we know bird watchers come to Bosque del Apache, they would come here. This area that my wife and I have purchased is very close to the migratory way along the Rio Grande River. We see the sandhill cranes and certain birds fly by our house every morning just like clockwork. It's really wonderful. We really love those birds. But that's where it's really at, and so we ask your participation and involvement in helping us do that. The area we bought has been neglected. I don't know when the last fencing was extant, and so we have to start with securing the boundaries, and we have done that by hiring Chaparral Surveying, gotten our corners established, and gotten our no trespassing signs put out according to state statute. We took Chief Apodaca down at the bottom of what we call Falcon Canyon by the rodeo grounds to see how an off-road vehicle had come down the wash and smashed our sign absolutely flat. And he commented that as destruction of property. So another count besides trespassing. I'm an educator, my wife was an educator too. We'd rather work educating people about the need to treat this area special. It is a special area. Than we would get up trespassing signs and fencing and so forth. But unfortunately, we have to do that until we can create a paradigm shift here and we can educate people as to what is really at stake and what the value is of an area like this to the community and to their children. So we just ask for your participation in that and your support, and we will continue to do what we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Eastfold. I'm the wife. I reside at 1301 North Silver. And today I would like to address something that you consider a distant possibility, but I'm concerned that it is a possibility, and that is an OHV ATV event area in the city limits. I would like you to consider the liability concerns. To begin with, it's not uncommon for law firms to brag about settlements between $100,000 and over $1 million, even when the driver is at fault. This should be a forefront consideration for the city and any private landowners considering partnership on such a venture. When a loved one is injured or killed, it's a natural reaction to seek blame, and that's where the lawyers are eager to jump in. One website mentioned a change in recreational immunity law for city or county agencies after a litigation entitled Johnson versus Gibson in 2016. After this lawsuit, city or county employees can be held liable for damages. So I ask that you bear this in mind as your discussion proceeds. I've also included a list of headlines from the Albuquerque Journal documenting increased injuries for misuse of ATVs, particularly in city limits. The most startling one began with, someone is admitted to the University of New Mexico Hospital Trauma Center about 3 times a month with injuries from all-terrain vehicles wreck. On January 19th, I personally witnessed a young, heavy-set man with a 3 to 6-year-old child in his lap riding a 4-wheel ATV, neither wearing helmets. He crossed Smith Avenue at a high rate of speed, then proceeded to illegally trespass across ungated, unposted 15 acres of the hospital property that shares a boundary with Sun Valley Hardware parking lot. He proceeded onto our now posted private property, past our sign. What if he had crashed and injured himself or killed his child passenger? As I mentioned last month in my testimony, most ATV fatalities are young children. The financial risk from lawsuits of ATV misuse and personal loss from injury far outweigh any perceived economic gain. To conclude, I'd like to say that on this day in 1983, my husband and I witnessed the city of Riverside, California, make into law Sycamore Canyon Park, an area that he and I courted over and eventually were married in. And we are now in our late phase of our lives trying to create this conservancy for Truth or Consequences. And it's been my privilege and honor and great joy to be associated with this man for 34 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Fenn, 316 North Foch. Going through the accounts payable this week, I noticed a $83,463 payment for professional services for the now defunct Armory building. This is part of a $194,000 apparent contract that we had with NCA Architects. Are you folks aware of that amount of money when you approved the RFP? Are you aware of the fact that there was virtually no public awareness of what was going on with this plan that goes back to 2014, before the state had given the property to the city? Back September of 14, this body authorized city manager to dispose of our police station downtown. This is things that are being done way out of line with what should be done. You did not know that the people, if you had informed them, would have said, no, we don't want that. We can't afford that, with all of the other problems in this city. You stated at the beginning of this meeting that this is the business meeting of the City of Truth and Consequences. The City of Truth and Consequences is its people. We, the people, are the city. Therefore, when you conduct business of the city, you conduct our business. And we have a right to know what business that is, what it's going to cost us, and why you are proposing to do these things. Since 2014, the police department has been renovated, and yet it was under contract, or not under this authorization for Manager Fuentes to dispose of the property. Were you planning on disposing it with the proper 3-54-1 state statute for disposal of property? I wonder. This is our city. The people need to be informed, properly informed, not partially informed or mostly misinformed, before you start making decisions that cost everyone in this city their money.
Thank you, Mr. Fenn. Do we have any further public comment at this time?
Hello, my name is Erica Baker. I work for the Truth or Consequences Police Department. I'm the lieutenant there. I just want to take a quick second and make the commission and the city manager aware that we received 15 flashlights, brand new. We want to see Mr. George Lee with the DUI Compliance Office our great thanks and appreciation for that. Provided our officers with brand new flashlights for on duty. The DUI Compliance Office is also purchasing us impairment goggles, which educates our children in the schools and also our communities of the impairment that can possibly happen when you are driving under the influence. And we're going to receive those really soon as well. So I just wanted to make you guys aware and also tell Mr. Lee, who's not here, he's going to be out of the country, but thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Les Dufour, and I'm with the Golf Advisory Board. I live at 1018 Copra. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the last year. I've been very remiss in talking to the commissioners and the city manager and keeping them advised as to concerns and issues that we felt were occurring at the golf course. I hope to improve that communication. I think there's a lot of work that I hear a lot of comments, and I think they're invaluable that I continue and improve my communication with the city manager particularly, and the commissioners. One of the things that's been brought up is a responsibility of the city, and I would like to reiterate that under contracts and with contracts that contracting officers do need to understand the contract that they're administrating, understand it thoroughly. There should be expectations, and those expectations from the contract should be constantly monitored. I think that constant communication will certainly help. All of the contractors that I've worked with are more than willing, usually, in my experience, to help improve conditions when they hear about it or see about it or realize that it is a part of their contract obligations. Also, I'd like to mention that while the Golf Course Improvement Fund is in the general fund, and we understand that, that fund has been utilized. We've been collecting $1 a round, and that goes into that fund. And we're working on a list of projects we'd like to see considered by the commission. We're more than willing to help participate as limited as our finances are, particularly a water filtration system, the sewer water, the effluent water has certain problems, and while the filter isn't the total solution with the age of the distribution system we have, it would certainly improve that and reduce the cost of maintenance and sprinkler heads. We've heard comments about, I think golf cart paths was another issue that we would like to see improved. Currently, the advisory board is querying players and members to see what their priorities might be, but we would certainly like to work with the city, start utilizing those funds to improve the infrastructure at the city golf course. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment at this time?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Stanley Rickert. I live at 1705 Cary Street. And I'm here to speak of my situation and the matters at hand that involve my neighbor's lot and a situation that Mr. Fuentes, the city manager, gave me the idea of going ahead and making this a official matter, and we could not do this informally. So I'm just here to let you know that I will be putting my comments down on paper and addressing the ordinances that are being violated and submitting them to the council so that we can get some kind of action started against what has taken place so far. And that's all I have to say. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment at this time? Any further comment? If not, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is item D, response to public comments. Do we have any response to public comments this morning? Commissioner?
Good morning, folks. Yeah, we've listened, all of us have listened, of course, to the public comment regarding the road issue and Mr. Rickard and his neighbors. And I certainly feel for the people, because that can be stressful for everybody. And I just hope that the people that are involved, whether they're right or wrong, or indifferent, make sure you involve the police in those situations where it becomes heated, and make a report so that you have, so there's history that's set down, and that we have a background. And please don't take matters into your own hands, because I know these things can be heated. I've had situations with neighbors that can get out of hand, and I hope that everybody would just be prudent. And if it gets heated, make that call and get a report done or whatever you need to have done so that it doesn't escalate after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hedgefield. Any other public comment, Commissioner?
I'd like to thank Howie Tucker and those representatives who showed up today to let us know the status of the golf course. I've walked the course myself. I've seen the conditions of the greens over the last 20 years since I've been here, from there being really fine golf tournaments being played there for the Ralph Edwards Fiesta tournament. I would like to see every effort made to bring it back to its former glory, if not even better than that. We have a clubhouse that's in need of dire repair. We have the ability to serve beverages now on the course. I'd like to see those properties surrounding the golf course prosper and do what's necessary to keep those greens green. We have plenty of gray water, effluent water being treated, and to be able to have access to that much water dedicated to the course and it not being used to its fullest capacity because of things like nitrates in the water and buildup. I'd like to see those problems addressed and get that course where it needs to be. So you have my full support on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Frankel. Any other response?
Here, Pro Tem.
Commissioner Clark.
Just very quickly, I'd like to thank the Eastfolds for coming into our community and making an effort to bring a background and to do something productive for our community, which is what you're bringing, this concept of the Chihuahua Desert Conservancy. Whatever I can do to help you on a personal basis, I would love to do that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Is there any other response? Hearing none, I would like to thank everyone for participation and your public comments. It's always good to hear issues and problems that the city has, and hopefully we can all work together and resolve these issues. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item E, presentations. Our first presentation, or our only presentation, excuse me, presentation related to Utilities Department, Melissa Torres, Finance Director, and Sonia Williams, Utility Office Supervisor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Chelsea LeClaire. She has been helping me tremendously in the utility office. When we were asked to put this presentation together, unfortunately I was very, very busy. Ms. LeClaire did put this presentation together, so I'm going to let her go ahead and read it to you guys. Happy Valentine's Day, and it's also her birthday. She's very nervous, so.
Well, happy birthday. Should we sing to you? And make it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're just going to do a quick presentation on the past, present, future, what we want to see in the utility office, and some things that have changed. And of course, we continue to keep growing, and we hope to keep making more effort to change. In the past, billing was done out of house for almost about 10 years. We now do billing in-house. It has gotten a lot better. We're timely. We're good on delinquents and disconnects and red tags. We never penalized customers in the past either, and we do that now as well. Solar accounts used to be done on a spreadsheet. We now work on it, actually through Tyler. Sonia was kind enough to call Tyler, and they helped her figure it out, get all the tweaks done, and done through that system. We never prosecuted anybody for stealing utilities, and we now do have our first case going for anybody who is illegally stealing power or water. There's no longer preferential treatment with customers when doing payment arrangements. Everyone is the same. Customer is a customer no matter who you are. In the red tags, we in the past for 2015 and 16, our red tags were about 10,000 penalties. Oops. There were 0 penalties on bills, and we were in the rears for 1.2 million. And like I said before, we are now doing billing in-house. We now offer budget billing to our customers, which is an average of their bills for the last 12 months. We do take credit card payments over the phone. We do now also have a suggestion box in our office, and we do have an open door policy with the supervisor if customers need to speak with her. We have the water meter reader working out of our office, which works great. We do also have online billing options. We have paperless billing, where you can get your bills emailed to you. Let's see here. Our revenue for 16 and 17 was 32 million. We have collected 14,000 in red tags, penalties almost 10,000, and we're now in arrears of 800,000. So a little better. Of course, there's always more. In the future, we hope to go completely paperless, so we no longer hold a lot of that stuff in the vaults or anything, to have like kind of scanner. We can scan everything in, it's on this system.
Tyler has the ability for us to be able to add driver's licenses, stuff like that, directly onto the customer's account, so then we wouldn't have to keep anything in the vault any longer, and that's something that we would like to implement.
Let's see here. We also like to work on sending text messages to our customers, friendly reminders through the Tyler system. They also offer that as well. We do have a bank draft set up right now, just through your checking account, though. We would like to get that on like a credit card, because a lot of customers ask about that as well, and Tyler does offer that as well. We just need to figure that out as well. Let's see here. And pretty much go with mailing out final notices, and to stop hand delivering red tags.
That's something Sierra Electric Co-op does. They send out the final notices, and it's like in red ink, and it goes directly to the customer, so then we wouldn't have to take the time from our meter readers to actually go pass them out and possibly give them to the wrong people. You know, that would help.
Let's see here. And of course, we're always working to provide the best customer service to all the citizens here in Truth or Consequences. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Do we have any comments regarding the presentation on the utility department?
Sure. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I think, we were very fortunate to be able to recruit and hire people like Sonia, Chelsea, and Melissa, of course, and everybody on staff in the utility office. I think as you can see, they've made a number of improvements in that office, and I think some of the vision that they have and some of the other things that are coming up, that's only going to get better. I think one of the things that I'd like to share with the commissioners and the public, part of the overall plan, and Melissa will jump in on this one, is on what you see here now is something that we've been discussing about restructuring further the utility office, and to include some of the issues that we heard in the public comment about contracts and receivables. And as you can see here, one of the things that we've been talking about is structuring the utility office now with the ability where the meter readers are going to fall under the utility office. I think that also has been one of the issues that we've been dealing with in the past, as far as trying to resolve customer issues and being able to be more accurate in the meter reading. So we're going to be restructuring the utility office to include a meter reader supervisor and 2 meter readers. And I believe both the meter readers from the electric department and the water will fall under the utility office. And on the other side, what's key there is that you see now it's a new position called accounts receivable supervisor. And the accounts receivable supervisor will be in charge of all of the contracts, anything that we have that we're supposed to be collecting money on. This person will be in charge, but they also will be an additional backup person to the utility office supervisor. So, and that will help to make sure that we are on top of those contracts, those deadlines, those payments that need to be made and received by the city. And some of these improvements are, one, to address some of the audit findings that we've had in the past, and to, again, try to provide a better operation in the utility office where customer service with the meter reading, with the billing is handled at that office, so that our water department, wastewater, is focused only on maintaining utility lines out there, and not so much worried about, a meter being misread wrong. That would be handled at the utility office. Melissa, if you want to add anything else?
And just to add to Mr. Fuentes, I think that that's one of the things that we're constantly looking at is, and you hear me say this often, is efficient and effective. You know, customer service is very important to us, and that was one of the things that we totally were focusing on. And so how can we better serve our community and our customers? Well, there's times where a lot of people don't understand is we have a turnaround, especially when it comes to our meter readers. And that really puts us flat-footed when it comes to our billing. I know that it makes Ms. Williams very nervous because, you know, if we don't get those rereads taken care of before we bill, or we don't get our notice taken care of in a timely fashion, that will affect the whole operation. And so one of the things that were proposed was having the meter readers under our operation. I think this will serve a great purpose of our customer service. We're able to respond in a timely fashion, but not only that, we're sure that our operation's being taken care of. Just as the electric department and the water department, their day-to-day operations very important to them as it is to us. And there was times where we were having that tug of war because we were limited on our resources. And so with this, we're hoping that we're able to take care of what we need to, which is serve our community on the billing side effectively and efficiently. On the accounts receivable, that's something that's going to be new into the finance department. And again, we're very excited for that. One of the things that was very challenging for finance is that there was always a bridge because we did not oversee accounts receivable or contracts. And so now that we're able to look at that also being under our umbrella, and of course we also went out to different municipalities and communities to see how they handle their finances. And this is something that we're shadowing as like Silver City is doing. And so this will give us the team that we're needing to be connected on our accounts receivable and our contracts and able to oversee them and to comply what we're needing to be versus ordinance and state statutes. So again, we're very excited for some of these changes that are going to be happening.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the commissioners?
I just want to thank Manager Fuentes and the Finance Department for these types of reports. I hope to have more of these in the future. I think this is important for not only the public, but for our commission to understand what's happening and where we're moving, where we've been and where we're going to. I think it's really important for us. And so this is excellent. You know, that's a $400,000 gain from 1.2 million down to 800,000. That's $400,000 that's going to benefit the citizens of this community and everyone. So thank you for the hard work, and Manager Fuentes, please keep these types of reports coming so that we understand what's going on and we can let our folks know. Thank you.
Again, thank you guys for your hard work. We appreciate it.
And before we leave, I just want everyone to know that we really appreciate Manager Fuentes and Melissa Torres. Thank you guys. You guys have been our backbone. Without your guys' support and just even your just being there for us, I mean, it means a lot to us because it helps us be able to make these changes and to move forward. And of course, commissioners, at one time or another, all of you guys have stopped by to offer support or whatever. We truly appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. We have removed item F1 to be considered separately, so I need a motion to approve F2, accounts payable January 2018, and F3, accepting the canvass of returns from for the January 23rd, 2018 special election.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Have a motion and a second to approve items in the consent calendar of F1 and 2. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Commissioner Clark asked that item F1 be removed as she was not in attendance at the January 10th, 2018 meeting. Do we have any discussion on those minutes? If not, I need a motion to accept F1 from the consent calendar.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we accept item F1 on the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item F1 consent calendar. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, Pro Tem, would you make it known that I abstain? And I know that abstention is not a normal course of action, but saying no would mean that I disagreed with the minutes, and saying yes would mean that I actually heard them and I did not. So if there were some minor error or an interpretation, I just want to make known that I can't make that call. So
Thank you, Commissioner Clark.
City Clerk, will abstention be okay on this? Thank you.
And those will be reflected in the minutes. The next item on our agenda is item G, public hearings. The first public hearing is the final adoption of ordinance number 691, amending section 833 of the code pertaining to the offense of criminal trespass. Attorney Rubin?
Yes, you're about to have a public hearing. Let me go ahead and make a few introductory comments, if I might. Good morning, everybody. My comments will be similar to what I mentioned when we went to publication last month, but let me go ahead and, for the purposes of being more definite, let's reiterate some of those comments. As we looked at our criminal code of ordinances, we have a lot of ordinances that were passed in 1962 that were never updated. They're now outdated, they're obsolete, so what I've agreed to do is actually start going through our code book and seeing really how we can update those. And in that regard, looking at the state statutes is very helpful. So we have two ordinances we're going to talk about today, and the first one is the criminal trespass ordinance, and there is a state statute which I was able to use for guidance. Now, the current criminal trespass ordinance is very brief. It just reads simply, criminal trespass consists of unlawfully and with malicious intent entering or remaining upon the lands or property of another, knowing that any consent to enter or remain has been denied or withdrawn by the person lawfully in possession of the property. Well, you got a couple of problems with this ordinance. First of all, it just doesn't go into enough detail to really explain what we're talking about, like, for example, posted property, unposted property. So we need to have some clarity there. And the second problem is it uses the phrase malicious intent, which would make it difficult to get a conviction under this section. So again, looking at the state statute, what I basically did was really incorporate what I found in the state statute. And let me just kind of summarize it for you a little bit. Paragraph A reads, criminal trespass consists of knowingly entering or remaining upon posted private property without possessing written permission from the owner or person in control of the land. Very simple. There are a couple of minor exceptions, which I don't think I need to go into, but then we'll go to paragraph B, and paragraph B expands that a little bit better for us. Paragraph B reads, criminal trespass also consists of knowingly entering or remaining upon the unposted lands of another, knowing that such consent to enter or remain is denied or withdrawn by the owner or occupant thereof. Then it goes on to read, notice of no consent to enter shall be deemed sufficient notice to the public and evidence to the courts by the posting of the property at all vehicular access entryways. In just a moment, I'm going to come back to that. I'll give you a little bit more explanation about that, but let me just finish what we have here. Paragraph C reads, criminal trespass also consists of knowingly entering or remaining upon lands owned, operated, controlled by the state or any of its political subdivisions, knowing that consent to enter or remain is denied or withdrawn by the custodian thereof. That could be helpful to us. As you know, there's been situations where we need something like this. Paragraph D reads, any person who enters upon the lands of another without prior permission and injures, damages, or destroys any part of the realty or its improvements, including buildings, structures, trees, shrubs, or other natural features, is guilty of a misdemeanor, and he shall be liable to the owner, lessee, or person in lawful possession for civil damages in an amount equal to double the value of the damage to the property injured or destroyed. So I think that's something that could be helpful to private landowners. So that's, again, that's from the state statute. And then paragraph E reads, whoever knowingly removes, tampers with, or destroys any no trespass sign is also in violation of the section. When we originally had this on the agenda last month, I didn't have it in there, but it was felt I should put it back in there from the state statute. That's something we don't really have addressed in the rest of our codes. That's in there. Let me just mention something about paragraph B, because you look at these two sentences, and it may be hard to really harmonize them, because the first sentence, as I talked about, is that you have to show that the person has, that the person knowingly enters upon the unposted property, knowing that such consent to enter is denied or withdrawn. And then the second sentence says, notice of no consent to enter shall be deemed sufficient notice to the public and evidence to the courts by the posting of the property at all vehicular access entryways. So you try and figure out why the state legislature say that. The first sentence you're talking about unposted property, and the second sentence it talks about posting. And I did some research on this, and I believe it really comes out of the decisions from our state Supreme Court, where you have to show, in order to prosecute under this section, you have to show intent by the transgressor. So that is why what the legislature decided to do is we're going to put the second sentence in there. This actually would be deemed to show the person knew what they were doing. The fact that there's a posting on the property, and if I have a post in front of my driveway and someone comes on the property, it's deemed that they knew that they were entering on my property. So that's why I believe it's written the way it is. So I'll take a deep breath. And I know we have a public hearing, so I know you have some people signed up for it, so I'm here to answer your questions too.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. At this time, we have three proponents that have signed up, and we will take them in the order that they have signed. First one is Sharon Eastfold.
Hello again. As I mentioned earlier, we've witnessed several trespassers on our new private property, and we took Chief Apodaca out and witnessed the sign damage, and so I'm urging you to continue with this effort to update your ordinances, but and perhaps Chief Apodaca can explain it further. It seemed that if the damage to the sign is in the same ordinance as the no trespass sign, then you could only file a violation, one violation. And it was my understanding that if there were two violations, trespass and damage to a sign, that would give us a greater opportunity for levying fines against the violator. So maybe they could address that particular question, and maybe you could consider separating those out to two different ordinances. I don't know if that creates a whole legal ball of wax for you or not. But in any case, being the owner of an unprotected area of land, I really support your effort to do this. Thank you.
And after the public comment, I will address what you just said.
Thank you. And our next proponent is Isaac Eastfold. I would like to note for the record that in our public hearings, you have 5 minutes to give your presentation.
Yes, good morning again. My name is Ike Eastfold. I reside at 1301 North Silver. And we closed on the 209-acre parcel we bought from the Falls Family LLC on October 17th. When we came back into town to work with David Sen of Chaparral Surveying to set our corners, we noticed considerable damage at the mouth of what we call Falcon Canyon down by the rodeo grounds. And first I noticed this sign, which is a course marker sign. And then David, in setting corners, said, well, there's another one up top you should look at. It says Poker Run Trail. So we looked on the New Mexico Off-Highway Vehicle Association website, and the Poker Run Trail was run on November 11th. It was sponsored by Steve Bell of Cedar Cove RV Park. I called Mr. Falls, Kyle Falls, to see if he had given permission for this. He said absolutely not. And he told me about his association with Mr. Bell, whom he respects, that he is a prominent businessman. He has bought and sold property himself. He knows how to go down to the assessor's office and look up ownership and to contact owners when he wants to do something on another piece of private property. And so Mr. Falls was disturbed that Mr. Bell would have done this. We learned from another source that this may have been an ATV event with 70 ATVs, 15 from outside of Tier C. So we proceeded, as I reported to you, with our corners and our posting of the property, which is now posted, and signs are being destroyed. We expect when we try to get some of the access roads gated and fenced that there will be a period where they will be challenged or torn down or cut. Sharon and I have dealt with properties like this that are threatened most of our lives. This is nothing new to us. And as I said, we're educators. We'd rather educate than we would litigate with folks like this. And we will try to educate Mr. Bell. We don't intend to try to bring the force of law against him on this instance. We'd like to solicit his cooperation to help us do some fencing, for instance. I don't know if he'll agree to that. But we want to get everybody involved in supporting the concept of the Conservancy as the highest and best use of this property for the community. And certainly ATV use in wildlife habitat like this with archaeological sites is inappropriate. When we looked at the course that was marked with these course markers, we found not only really appalling direct destruction of native plants, but one of the fairly infrequent yucca plants was barreled into head-on to try to knock it down. I just can't imagine doing something like that. Creosotes were a frequent target. And then we got to the top of the hill climb where the sign was, and unfortunately there's a large archaeological site, the largest one in our property, that was partially damaged. One of the components, which had a midden deposit, which is the kind of charcoal deposit that archaeologists can date, was partially grazed. And then there were some off-trail wheelies and things that went into other parts of the archaeological site. These remains are very precious, and they're going to be of high interest to people visiting that site when it becomes established and protected, and particularly to school children. So I think that probably hurt us the most, to see that just out of ignorance and a failure to even contact landowners, that these kind of damages occurred to something which is valuable for the future. And so we really applaud what you're trying to do here, and I might say that it's been a real pleasure working with Chief Apodaca and his predecessor too. On January 19th of this year, we did observe what my wife has reported on, an operator of a four-wheel ATV very recklessly endangering the safety of his child on a road that enters into our property through another property which is evidently owned by the Joint Powers Commission. And so that's another issue.
Thank you, Mr. Eastholt. Our next proponent on the list is Kelly Becker. No? Do not want to speak at this time. Okay, thank you. And that is all I have. Do we have any comments to the proponents by the commissioners? No?
And I'll just say something regarding what Ms. Eastholt said. I don't think you have to prepare a separate ordinance regarding the sign issue. If hypothetically someone were to go to your property and destroy the sign and then enter the property, you could charge them 2 separate counts. And you have 2 separate counts, the same as ordinance that's happened many times before, so that wouldn't be a problem. Okay.
Thank you. Hearing no further public comment on ordinance number 691, I will now move to our second public hearing, which is item G2, public hearing, final adoption of ordinance number 692. Attorney Rubin.
Okay, and again, most of what I'm about to say I took from the state statute, but our present ordinance on disorderly conduct reads, and the main text of it says, disorderly conduct consists of any of the following, and the number 1 is the main one we look at: engaging in any public place in violent, abusive, indecent, or otherwise disorderly conduct which creates a clear and present danger of violence. So note the language there, that in order to prosecute someone under this section, you have to show that the conduct is creating a clear and present danger of violence. Now, let's contrast that with what the proposed new ordinance would read. Disorderly conduct consists of A, engaging in violent, abusive, indecent, profane, boisterous, unreasonably loud, or otherwise disorderly conduct which tends to disturb the peace. So again, I don't have to prove that the conduct rises to the level of creating a danger of violence. I would only have to prove it disturbs the peace. Then letter B, again, in discussing the elements of disorderly conduct, also consists of maliciously disturbing, threatening, or in an insolent manner, intentionally touching any house occupied by any person. And again, I took that right from state statute. And then paragraph C is not actually from our state statute, but it's from our old ordinance, and it was just felt when we discussed the publication process, we want to keep this in here because we don't have this anywhere else in our code. So letter C, maliciously making a telephone call with intent to annoy or threaten another, whether or not conversation ensues. So that's what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. And on this ordinance 692, there were no proponents or opponents. So do we have any questions, comments from the commission? Hearing none and seeing none, I will close this public hearing and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item H1, ordinances, resolutions. 1, discussion, action, final adoption of ordinance number 691, amending section 833 of the code pertaining to the offense of criminal trespass, and this has been presented by Attorney Rubin. Attorney Rubin, do you have any further comments?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Do I have a motion that we approve this ordinance?
I'll make the motion for the final adoption of ordinance 691, amending section 8-33 of the code pertaining to the offense of criminal trespass.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the final adoption of ordinance number 691, amending section 833 of the code pertaining to the offense of criminal trespass. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, do we have to call roll on this?
Yes.
And can I have a roll call?
Honorable Steve Green is absent. Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Yes.
Honorable Joshua Frankel.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item H2, discussion action, final adoption of ordinance number 692, amending section 835 of the code pertaining to the offense of disorderly conduct, as presented by Attorney Rubin. Attorney Rubin, do you have any further comments?
No.
Hearing none, do we have any further comments from the commission?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Commissioner Clark.
So I read this particular disorderly conduct without any background on it. And so I just wanted to give you my take reading it without having been involved with the discussion prior to. And I have a little bit of a problem, so maybe you can help me, Attorney Rubin. My biggest problem is number C, and that is the maliciously making a telephone call with intent to annoy or threaten another, whether or not conversation ensues. So the thing that concerned me is this: how are you going to know if somebody's intent is to bother somebody when they call up and hang up and leave no message? You could make that up, and then somebody would have to defend themselves. But that's what went through my head first off is, you know, if I get 2 hang-ups from the same phone number, I could get paranoid and say this person is trying to maliciously bother me or annoy me, and I didn't have a conversation, but that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
That was just what went through my mind initially, and so I'm concerned that that might be a challenge if we ever got that in court, because I don't think we have a precedent on it, and that we now have telephone calls that are cell phones. We're going to have that number, where before we may not have had access to a number. And the other thing that disturbed me is the comment disturbed the peace, and so I would ask the chief and Lieutenant Baker, congratulations, what do you define disturb the peace? I mean, I understand the noise from 10 till 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, but what else would be a definition of disturb the peace?
Well, obviously, if you have some intoxicated person that's yelling and carrying on and waking up everybody in the neighborhood, disturbing the peace because of his loud, boisterous, disorderly behavior, would be an example of disturbing the peace. Actually, that disorderly conduct has to happen in a public place.
So an example is the other day I was down at work and right on the corner in the middle of the intersection between Clancy and Broadway, a car is parked, a gentleman walks up to the car and starts screaming in profane language to this person. It's broad daylight. Would that be disturbing the peace? So that person, whether they were intoxicated or not, could have been held under this ordinance. So then the only concern that I really have is the telephone call issue. How are we going to determine intent if the phone call did not ensue in a conversation?
And that's something we.
Chief Apodaca, excuse me, could you get to the mic so we can pick you up on the recorder, please?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. In a phone call situation like that, and this has gone on since I've been in a lot of years, we have to investigate. Prior to caller ID, it was very difficult. We'd have to actually get them to fill out a form, and the phone company would document times of certain numbers, and we'd have to wait on those. Well, nowadays we have caller ID. So if we have a particular number, I keep getting a call from this particular number. Well, now we have the technology where we can actually get a hold of the phone company and actually can do it online and get the owner of that phone and find out, investigate, talk to them and find out why they're calling this number. It may be an innocent thing. They may be, a buddy of mine used to have this number, and I call it and I keep getting this strange voice, whatever. But we have the ability to investigate it with caller ID, and typically it's a ex-boyfriend or somebody they have a problem with. And if we find out that they're calling and hanging up repeatedly, we have to investigate it so that we can prove in court that they're using their phone to harass this person.
So there's a possibility if this goes through, this particular ordinance, and that number C is abused or misused by frequently, we could change this ordinance, the wording in it.
Yes, and the irony about this conversation was when I presented this to the commission last month, I only had A and B in there, because that's all the state statute says. And in fairness to you, paragraph C is not in the state statute. But the commission, I think, and the police department want to keep that in there to cover the situation the chief just addressed. So that's why we have it in there. I will concede in a situation like that, it's a case-by-case situation, it's just going to involve some, reasonableness on our part to analyze each particular situation and make a determination from the facts in that case. Does this rise to the level of malicious conduct? So it's an opinion you're going to have to express when you decide.
So is this a special request from your police department?
Yes, ma'am, because there's no other ordinance for harassing phone calls.
Thank you, that's all I needed. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Commissioner
Madam
Clark. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 692, amending section 835 of the code pertaining to the offense of disorderly conduct.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make that motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the final adoption of ordinance number 692. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Steve Green is absent. Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Ron Fishler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Franco.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item H3, ordinance discussion action, resolution number 23-1718, budget adjustment. Melissa Torres, Finance Director.
Good morning again, Commissioner. The City of Truth or Consequences is respectively asking for the following budget adjustments for the following reasons. General Fund, Fund 101, $2,000 increase, higher revenue. Fund, again, 101, last number's 37374, increase $3,300 due to higher revenue. Fund 101, 1014-808-10, increase the expense for $13,830. We were very fortunate that we received a grant for a fogger through New Mexico Environmental Health. Fund 292, which is the federal cease, increased the expense line $1,393. This will be for equipment for the police department. Fund 293, which is the Veterans Wall, increased expense for $40. These are for the purchase of urns. Fund 503, which is the Electric Department. Last number is 44615 for $7,000. This is for the purchase of AEDs, which are also known as automatic internal defibrillators. So we're really excited about this because these, thanks to the Electric Department, these defibrillators will be the first that we have in the city. So we're moving on up. The next one is also for the Electric Department, Fund 503. This one is for $78,300. These are for new pole replacement and also a rail trailer that was also a USDA grant that the Electric Department received. And at this time, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Melissa. Is there any discussion from the commission?
I have a question, and I don't know if I'm maybe out of timing sequence on this. Maybe I should have asked it when we approved the finance. And if I am out of place, correct me.
Yes, ma'am.
But there was reference made to an $83,000 architect payment, and can you answer that question and on this topic, or can you come back to us and let us know what that was?
Yes, ma'am. If you don't mind, if I could go into a little bit more detail at the next commission meeting, we can do that at that time. But again, it was more for the design and the architect that was from the RFB.
But we don't know if that was for the animal shelter or for...
It was for the law enforcement complex.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you could report back to us at the next meeting?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Thank you, Ms. Torres.
You're welcome.
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve resolution number 23-1718 budget adjustment as presented by Melissa Torres.
I'll make that motion.
You have a second?
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 23-1718 budget adjustment. Madam Clerk, do we have any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Steve Green is absent. Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eisler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Frankel.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next
Thank
item
you.
on our agenda this morning is item H4, discussion action, resolution number 24-1718 to abate a dangerous structure at Lot 11, Block 76, original town site. We have Robbie Travis, our building inspector, and Susanna Diller, our planning GIS tech.
Madam Mayor.
And Madam Mayor, as this involves property which is directly across from where my house is, it affects my personal interest, so I'll have to recuse myself, so I'm going to go ahead and step out.
Thank you.
I too need to recuse myself as I have a financial interest in the adjoining property as a real estate agent that we have listed for
Do
sale.
I need to recuse
Thank you.
myself? Am I close enough? That's going to be a tough one. That's a big decision.
How do you feel about it?
I'm the one that complained about it first. We may need to wait until Mayor Green's back.
Yeah, we won't have a quorum.
We don't have a quorum, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. At this time, as we have some people that need to recuse themselves, as Commissioner Frankel and Attorney Rubin and Commissioner Clark, we do not have a quorum to hear this, so this will have to be postponed till our next commission meeting, and that will be on our next agenda. Do I have a motion to postpone this?
I do. I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
You have a second?
I have a motion and a second to postpone this item until our next meeting, which will be on February 28th, due to the lack of a quorum. Thank you. Do I have all those in favor signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. The next item on our agenda is, what else do we have? Discussion update, discussion to install antennas on the water tank on the hill off Foch Street. Robbie Travis and Susanna.
Hello, Commissioners, City Manager. We're here before you to kind of proceed with what we discussed in terms of installing antennas on the water tank on the hill off North Foch Street. And Amy McKenzie is here with Black and Beach as well, and she's going to do a brief presentation. This item had been discussed with the commission, and they put it back to staff requesting further information, and the current staff recommendation is to proceed with the presentation and discussion for you all.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Amy McKenzie. I represent Verizon Wireless. I work for Black and Beach, and I'm based in Albuquerque. Thank you again for allowing me to come and make a presentation. We are looking to add antennas to the water tank at Foch. As I've been talking to Mr. Travis, I understand that the water tank is not being used as a water tank right now, so it's actually kind of a nice win-win, in our opinion, to utilize the water tower as an existing structure, so we don't have to add any verticality into TRC since it's already there. And what we would be looking to do is we would be looking to install 6 antennas. They would be 2 on 3 different points of the water tower. We would be looking at doing them just under the decorative band, for lack of a better way to say it, the painted band. So it should not. We don't anticipate it affecting any of like the horses or the faces or any of the decorative part of the mural. We would paint them at this point the same color as the tower, so that kind of sandy color. And we would be looking, again, for 6 antennas, so you would see 2 at one location, 2 at another, and 2 on the other side. The reason that we have identified TRC as needing this is, as everybody has a cell phone, a lot of people have coverage. They're like, why are you coming to TRC? The purpose is that these phones that we carry are no longer phones. They're computers. We use them for everything. We use them for GPS. We use them to download Netflix. We use them to, my son goes to UNM, he does all of his homework assignments on it. He has to turn them in on his phone. So, I mean, these are computers that we're talking about. And what Verizon is trying to do is we're trying to get ahead of the technology. We're in 3G, 4G, 5G, and G means generation. So we're trying to keep ahead of what our customers are looking for. And the customers here in TRC are looking for that excellent service. And that excellent service is not just to be able to place a phone call, but also to be able to use it for data. So it's not just voice, it's also for data. And currently we don't have a cell site in TRCs. We have them off of I-25, but we don't have them one here in the city proper. So the more technology that comes, the more demand that's required from our cell sites. And so it's kind of like thinking about if you're going down a highway and it's only one lane, and there's only so many people you can get down that one lane. We're trying to expand those lanes and add to that so that more people can use the capacity of our network. Just to give you a little bit of idea of how data and voice is used today, over the last 2 years alone, data use, so looking up maps, using downloading a movie, whatever, it's actually increased by 238%. I mean, this is exponential. When I first started this back in the 80s, I couldn't envision this, and it's moving so quickly with data that it's just important again to know why we're out here and why it's important to come to TRC. 76% of 911 calls come from a mobile device. 52% of households in the U.S. now are strictly mobile. And the younger the population, so like the millennials and younger, that number's over, I believe, 80%. I have two millennials of my own, and they've never had a house phone and never will have a house phone. They have the same phone number, and they just, when they move, they take their phone number with them. They take their phone with them. And also 75% of prospective homeowners now look for coverage. They look for data coverage, they look for voice coverage, and when they're buying a house, they want to do that. I think that's important to note nowadays when a lot of companies have virtual employees working from home. So they want good wireless, they want good data, they want it to be just like they're working from an office, if they're working from their home office. Again, I put some, I hope you have in your packet, I put photo simulations so you can see what the antennas would look like. I know that's a little further of a view. And I also put in the coverage maps, because right now you can see there's very little coverage and capacity here around the Foch water tank. With the addition of this cell site, that will take care of that immeasurably. You can, could you go back one? Thank you. You can see I accentuated, I guess, a little bit of the towers. I think they'll blend a little bit more. I just wanted you to be able to see them on the photo simulation of where they're located. Thank you. They are 8-foot antennas, and I'll take any questions you have at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments, any discussion? Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, thank you. So this came up in front of us a couple months ago, and I have some thoughts thinking about it afterwards.
Yes, ma'am.
And these are my concerns. The location of those, because I have a business downtown, I'm just saying this.
Yes.
We have an extremely difficult time with reception.
Right.
And one of the biggest issues, and Mr. Travis, if you wouldn't mind helping us out with this, is where antennas would be placed on the towers so that the downtown area gets coverage also. So we get that north, south, east, and west. So that's critical because it's very frustrating, and we have so many out-of-town guests that stay in the downtown area when they can't get the reception, and they're dependent upon it. They can't get Wi-Fi from the hoteliers, for example. They can at least get it off their phone and still work off of their phone or hotspot their computer off of it, right? So that's a real big issue for me, to make sure that that's placed in such an area that it covers. And the other big really issue for me is the other big carrier, apart from Verizon, is being AT&T. And a lot of our out-of-state people and out-of-town people are using AT&T, and that was the big concern I have, is that the water tower, we want to keep it. We don't want it to look ugly, and so we appreciate your look better than some of the other things that have been proposed to us. But if we give preference to Verizon, what happens when we really need AT&T also? And that's a big concern for me. And I know that Mr. Travis went out and did some communicating about that issue. And I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, because I don't want to give preference to one telephone company when I know that another telephone company is desperately needed by our community.
Yes, we had a meeting with AT&T. I think it was FirstNet chief and mayor, and I went to it. And we talked to them about this situation and one of our other towers that's coming up at the ball fields to see if they would be interested in going on that. And I think it's really something that is between the companies, if they can work it out or coexist on the same, what we might end up doing is not giving them the exclusive. They have their antennas there, and then AT&T could put their antenna next to it, something like that, because they don't seem to want to play together real well. And so, they're so competitive that, we're talking to them, it was, so that would be something that the commission could say, hey, you can't have exclusive right to our tank. We're going to have others.
So in other words, you're giving us the ability to force mediation. Right. I mean, it is kind of frustrating, and I know that there is competition between companies, especially big corporations, but that doesn't serve our needs, and our needs to be met first, in my opinion. And so it's something that I would like my fellow commissioners and city manager, any input on that one, but I think we're doing a disservice if we give you an exclusivity up there, because it is the best location.
Yes, and we can address that in the lease with the city. As far as exclusivity, we co-locate on water towers with other carriers. The only thing we have to work out with another provider is just to make sure that we have separation, and those are requirements so that our technologies don't interfere with each other. AT&T's technology and Verizon's technology are similar, but not the same. We have different frequencies, different bands, different FCC requirements, and that sort of thing. So as long as we can met out the separation, that's a big water tower. I don't anticipate that being a problem. They would have to just adjust their azimuths in order to fit that. The other thing too is that I don't have AT&T's plans or network, so this might not even be a tower that works for them placement-wise in their network. But I don't know that for certain. It happened. I'm always the path of least resistance kind of gal, and so when I do this, I always look for existing verticality, whether it's an existing tower, whether it's a water tower, a rooftop, whatever, because they're already used to seeing that verticality. And unfortunately, I've picked locations where it works for Verizon, but it doesn't work for AT&T. So it's hard to speculate on what AT&T's coverage needs are as a Verizon person. But with that said, I still think that you have the real estate available on that water tower, and of course Verizon we're only going to be leasing what Verizon needs. So I don't see that as being an issue about a future carrier coming on. We do this all the time, co-locating more than one carrier on water towers. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you don't have the answer,
I
basically.
don't, yeah.
So that answers the question.
Right, well, all I can say is that we will work with the city, and if you have another provider come behind, that's part of our contract with the city, and we will work with you.
Yeah, Commissioners, Manager, I really do feel that it's important that the AT&T thing be solved at the same time or prior to any decision that we would make on this one, because if we put Verizon on there and AT&T can't go because of that situation, and also knowing, I'm sure, you know, that we have our first responder information comes off of that hill, and that's critical for us.
Right.
I mean, that puts us, that's even more important than anything you could possibly put there.
And that's a chief concern of why we're coming, is so we can enhance E911 services here. Because again, this is how people are communicating on E911. They're not going home to make the phone call, they're calling it on the spot. So we want to improve that service here in Tier C.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion?
Manager Fuentes, have we reached out to AT&T to see if they were interested in anything in that regard?
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, I think that's the meeting that Robbie's referring to.
Right.
Where they had the conversation with a representative from AT&T. But, you know, we do have Verizon here who has been, you know, actively kind of working with the city and bringing this, you know, enhancing the service downtown. I don't know if the same level of commitment was made by the folks at AT&T. Can you share that, Robbie?
Yeah, we did. I spoke to him privately and tried to, you know, let him know, hey, we have these 2 locations that are coming in. We would like you guys to come in, you know, on those locations with Verizon, you know, and he was going to check into it. He was a district rep. He was going to check with his supervisor and see what he could find out. But I think they would. I mean, it's done all the time, and so I don't see a big deal in it if we can get them. You know, it's AT&T if they are willing to come, you know, because of the service area that the users they have in this area, to make it worth it for them. But one of the things that they were offering was the FirstNet service, and that was giving first responders the first place online, so they would have access all the time to, you know, nobody could go above them. They would have the first access to the wireless connection, and so that was good. So I think it's doable.
Offered. I'm sorry, I wasn't.
Yes, that's what AT&T offered, yeah. And so.
Yeah, that's the, I guess it's called FirstNet, and during an emergency, big event, we can notify them and they'll set up that priority. They made an analogy as like the HB lane on the freeway, would be the first responders. So in an emergency or a big event, we would always have internet service.
On top priority.
And they're real interested in the spaceport stuff that's going on there. That was their
Well,
big
That's a
push.
real
and-
big one, yeah.
And so, yeah, that's why they're
One of the
trying to.
main issues, also apart from just the downtown coverage, is having the spaceport people.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, and I think since we already have Verizon as an active, company proposing to come into the tower, I think we can reach out to the representative of AT&T and see what is their level of commitment. Are they willing to come in and provide within the same timeframe? I don't know if the will of the commission is just to hold off on one because the other hasn't committed, or will we give AT&T number of days, you have to commit, or are you going to do something? It's really hard, I guess, what I'm hearing from you, Robbie, well, they have expressed interest, they didn't jump or commit.
Right.
So, and I think that's really what's at the bottom line is, do we move forward with enhancing Verizon and some of the coverage for those locals that use that?
Right.
And while we continue to press AT&T to come in, because that's needed for the out of state, from other countries. A lot of folks use AT&T from other countries that are coming to the spaceport.
This isn't a decision to be made today, it's just discussion. So I think that's really good. And I think that we don't want to cut you out, because Verizon is like the carrier here.
Right.
It would be nice to know if AT&T's, whatever their technology is, would not interfere with this and not interfere with our 911 and fire information. Just for our information, whether we can encourage AT&T in right now or not, it would still be nice to know that if they do get to that point where we are a critical location for them, that there is a complement that it could go on to that hill. Howard, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I would feel comfortable if we got at least a declination from AT&T about using that tank.
Yes or no?
Yeah, and if they decide not to use the tank and they have other technology or another way they want to go, they can present that to us at a later date. But at least it would, in my mind, free up that tank for Verizon use, so we could feel better about it.
Can we do that, Mr. Travis?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I can ask a question, so if AT&T does wish to go, who gets priority of need? So if for some reason they wanted the same center line on the tower and the same azimuths that Verizon was asking for, would we not get the first opportunity at that because we're here presenting and asking?
That's a really good question.
Because I
think that's kind of a fair question, too.
Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to identify a site here in TRC for quite a while, and I mean, this looks like it's an optimum solution for us, and I play nicely in the sandbox. We do. Verizon does. However, there is
You're
something.
still asking for first
Right.
place.
There is something to be saying about standing in front of the line at the head of the line, and we have a commitment. We are not wishy-washy about, well, we might be coming, we might be able to use it. I mean, there's an identified need and an identified desire to move forward here on behalf of Verizon and TRC. So I would just, I guess request some special consideration, if you want to call it that, because we are ready to move forward, and I would be concerned of waiting indefinitely or even for I don't know how long on AT&T to decide. I know that from experience of working with Verizon is, everybody's on a plan of growth, but that plan may or may not be imminent. I'm sure TRC is probably on their list somewhere, but where is it on their list? 2018, 2025, I don't know. And I don't know that they really could tell you that, today. So I just, I don't want to necessarily have to wait too long, if at all, if it's necessary, for our competitors to catch up with us here in TRC.
And that's kind of what I would like to see too, that we don't wait a very long time. I think the majority of our users in Truth or Consequences are Verizon anyway, and it would be nice to have these other carriers on with us, but we need to start somewhere and we need to get going. I mean, we're really lagging in our community. And so this is something that we can't wait very long for, and we shouldn't wait very long for, and we shouldn't have to put you on hold very long. So AT&T is aware that this is happening and been discussed. And so again, I think we need to reach out to them and see what their interest is and go forward. Move forward quickly and get this up and running.
One of the things that they did say at that meeting was that they were a little ways out. Wasn't that, Chief, what they had said, that they were out a year and a half before they would really get here with their FirstNet and more of their towers and stuff that they're building to it. Right. But to that, but yeah, we can sure give them 30 days, 60 days, something like that, and say, hey, respond if you're interested in this. If not, we're moving forward.
Well, if it's true that they're actually a year and a half out, then I'm going to put you at the top of my sandbox.
Thank you.
With the trophy, because thank you. But it would be nice to know if the technology is compatible, just, for that and what the commitment really is.
Madam Mayor, Commissioner, I think just if they're all that far out, then obviously, and you all are willing to kind of work with
Absolutely.
the area to kind of maybe be able to work on the same tower, maybe letting them know that this is already happening now,
Yeah.
could possibly happen to, pretty rather soon. And down the road, they might either have to work with Verizon if it's already there,
Right.
or other sites in town will have to work on.
And the only thing, if I can interject, the only thing we have to really work on as far as the placement of AT&T's antennas is where they want to go on the tank. Because really that deal is with the city. As far as the lease and agreement on this is where the center line is going to be, this is where the antenna is going to be. The only working part of it, coordination part of it, is separation. So AT&T will know straight away that we're going at 45 center line and our azimuths are, I don't have it in front of me, but just 200, 300, 100, whatever it is. So they're already going to know. And again, we work co-locating with other carriers all the time. So as long as they know where we're going, they can adjust their parameters and their designs in order to work for it. So if they really want that water tank, they'll figure out how to get on it. As far as as far as the technology goes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any further discussion?
I just think we ought to hold off about 30 days, nothing longer than that, and that would give us ample time, I think, to get in contact with AT&T, and then we can make a final decision.
Well, I think no longer than 30 days would be sufficient, especially since they're already aware that we're planning, and we've been looking at this. And this isn't the first time that this has been on the agenda. It's been on several agendas, so. Okay. Do we have to do anything at this time? This is just a discussion.
It was just an update, but we have the direction, so we know to notify them. We have 30 days to.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have one final question, if you don't mind.
Commissioner Clark.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
when I did some research, and it's really not coming really super clear in my brain, but I do remember that there is a FCC regulation that says that there has to be allowed a tower every X amount of miles throughout the country. So if there was a municipality, for example, that where we are and the next town is 70 miles this way and 70 miles that way, even if we didn't want it, we'd have to say yes to put it in there. It's an FCC thing I read, so I just got this look like maybe you aren't familiar with it. But that was one of the arguments we had when somebody was trying to say we have to put this on your tower.
Yeah.
And it was one of the people that build the tower and then lease to Verizon and AT&T. So it's a little bit different.
Yes.
You don't know anything.
No,
about
no,
that?
I do know where you're coming from with that. I've never seen that. I know tower companies have a different kind of, what do I call it, agenda than wireless does. Verizon I don't believe would ever come in and put a tower in an island, because you can't use it. You have to have connectivity. You have to be able to connect to the next tower to get into the network. So it's not something Verizon would do. I don't know why they would ever do that, to put it in an island that can't connect to anything. I'm not saying never, but I've never seen that in 20 years. As far as what tower providers are doing, and again, I'm speculating a little bit, but they build towers, and then they try to get carriers to come on it. And again, it's attractive to a carrier because it's already got verticality, they've already zoned it, leased it, the whole 9 yards. So it's a little bit of a different kind of a thought process, a planning process. So I'm representing the Verizon. I'm representing the carrier. I'm not representing like American Tower or Crown or Pinnacle or a tower builder. So it's a little bit different of a mindset. I'm not sure if I'm completely answering your question, but
indirectly, but you gave me some more information, and that is that basically by going with you directly, we're cutting out the middleman, which would be the tower company.
Yes.
And the tower company does have this muscle that they can say there's an FCC rules and regulations that we have to put it in a tower.
Right.
But being able to deal with you might be more lucrative to the city in the first place, because we're doing the lease directly with you, and that middleman is cut out.
Absolutely. And the only thing that we're going to be leasing is the placement on the tower for the antennas and a small ground space.
Yeah.
And
Thank
then
you.
we're done.
I think I'm finished.
Okay.
Think you're finished? Okay.
And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out through Robbie. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know things come up as you go home and you're like, oh, I wish I had asked that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda is under new business I-1, discussion action 2019 local government road LGRF participation. Don Armijo, front and center.
Commissioners, Manager Fuentes. It's that time of year again that we start looking out to the 2019 LGRF. So we've got together and put a list together, used part of the old list and added some stuff to it. If you'll remember, what we've done is gone through and all the streets that are basically dirt streets where we have people living, quite a few people living on. We've gone through and just give those as a directive, gone through and actually given you, Manager Fuentes, did you receive the PowerPoint on that? Thank you, sir.
You have a little...
Right beside you.
All right, see if I pushed the right one. So I'm not sure in your package if you got the list of streets. They just got it like that, so we'll go through. So thank you. Also, I'd like to give a big thanks out to my admin assistant, Tracy Johnson. She helped compile some of this and go through some of this and helped organize it so that we could present it here to you today. So these are in no particular order or any particular thing of importance or anything, and we'll go through. I did a little more research on it today, and I'll kind of hit that with you when we go through.
It's going to be the arrow on your right. The little...
I got to think which one's my right, Chief. Okay, first one is Golf Club Drive. If this is just a little block there that goes between, it kind of dead ends where you see that house down there. There's asphalt from there back to Marie, and then this actually ends right there off of Coper Street, back up there. So, and it's quite well used. You see them going through there quite often and stuff. This is a continuation of 2015 LGRF. So as I struggle through trying to read some of this, you'll just bear with me. It's got a brief thing here of on the area of how many square feet, how many feet long it is, and 30 foot wide. Cost estimation to do this one block is $19,000, and that's with us performing the work on this one to do it. Beater from iron. I went back through and I kind of marked that one on number 2 here and number 3. They're both blocks of beater. You know, we received quite a few complaints there from dust coming off of there, and so as we're working on that area, we'll go through on this one. This one is actually what I did was look at half of it to put on to do as a chip seal. Therefore, as you can tell, this one was $16,800 the estimate to do this, and this is chip seal. One of the reasons for looking at the 2 different ways of doing this is if we do a chip seal, we can do that down and just chip seal the roadway and the surface of the roadway, and then turn it into, basically we'll turn it back into a street, and we're not going to have the dust, and we're not going to have the any of the problems with the water and stuff on it. It'll all be designed to run off and do that. Moving on to beater hide to the royal. This one right here was actually is one of the ones, like I said, that we received quite a few complaints on too because of the dust. This was estimated with curb and gutter and sidewalk on both sides of the road. And we'll need to recheck that figure. That for the, oh yeah, I jumped down a little bit. Actually, the first one we did with hide to the royal. Yeah, I got them transposed here. They're a little bit different to what I got them written down on here. But number 3, beater hide to the royal is, as you can tell, this one's got curb and gutter, sidewalk, and everything. The price tag on this one is closer to $45,800. Also, just want to let you guys know that in the past couple of years, you'll be able to see where the state has gone. Our average dollars keeps going down. We went from like 56 or 57 down to 52 this last year, and the price to actually, as you can tell, to do the blocks on this is $45,800. If we do this with asphalt, any new asphalt that we put down that comes down on there, we're required by law now to provide ADA and sidewalk. So, City Street number 4 is, and it's just a dead end to Myrtle. We have one customer that lives down on this street that he usually turns a complaint in a couple times a year, asking for it to be paved. And so, like I say, it serves one person, but it's on the thing there because we have received several complaints on it. The estimate to do that one is $19,500 with curb and gutter and sidewalks, and then of course with hot mix. So, like I say, by having this, the paper to go through and look at, it'll help you guys look and see a little bit more than if you don't have access to actually look at these streets on here. City Street from here continues east towards from Myrtle to Henson. These streets in this area is really narrow. You can tell it's 23 foot wide. Most of our average streets run 32 foot wide. So any of your side streets that are in residential areas are going to be generally 32 foot wide. And this is just kind of an alley at the end of the roadway there. But we do happen to have a few people that live on the end of it. 6, continuation of City Street from Henson to Radium Street. And of course, this would continue the curb and gutter. On one side, we'd have sidewalk, 322 foot long, 23 foot wide, at an estimated cost of $36,000. Seven is Marshall Street, Platinum to Tin. If just so you know, when you go down Marshall Street here, this is also the road that turns into the river road that goes along behind the river, and then back over to Daniels and to that area of downtown. I'll back up on that. This one was 36 foot wide. You can tell one time we had a contractor and he had a little bit of mix left over, so we laid 2 paths down, but we actually need to go a little bit over, and so that'd be nice to go through and do either a tight blade or just lay the whole thing out on there to get the street up to width. Most of the streets in these areas are 36 foot wide. Marshall from Tin to Cole, that's just at the end of that street. It actually turns into a dirt street, and then as you can tell, it narrows quite a bit by looking at the pictures, but that would be nice to bring out to do the block there, 360 foot long for the block, 36 foot wide, and that's $13,500. And I believe that was looking at just looking at the price tag like that to do a block. We're probably looking at chip seal on this section right there to be able to continue this with the chip seal. River Road from Tin to the bottom of the hill. If most of you have been on that road, you know when it comes off, it drops off that big hill and makes that curve right at the bottom. It was figured on there. I think mostly figured on that one right there up down to that part. It just broke up in sections to where we'd be able to be a little more affordable. This one is would be chip seal. Most of the streets in that area are chip seal. So it would also help with if anybody's ever been on the River Road, when it gets really wet back there, you'll see it's like to go play on it and slide and have a good time. We've had a couple of accidents at the bottom of that hill, right where they've come down excess speed and ended up in the river upside down right there. So it's kind of a safety concern too, and possibly putting a chip seal on it would actually help alleviate some of those problems that we have there. Number 10, West Riverside, Wyona to Daniels, and this is the Rotary Park is on this side. On the end of this, it actually comes from Daniels and swings back around. It's a little dirt pathway there. Of course, again, it's 22 foot wide, and I can't remember if we did. I think we just did chip seal on this one as well. Number 11 is Kruger, 8th to 7th Street. I left this one on because, you know, we've been coming up there, and hopefully with the money that they gave us on Kruger this year, we ended up a little short. We were about a block short. We're hoping that by the end of the year we'll have enough money on there to continue that up and bring it up to the top, so we'll be ready for this next year's project. But, you know, this was still on there because eventually this goes all the way to 8th Street, so eventually it'd be nice to have this all in paved and have sidewalk all the way down there. Number 13, East 8th, Coleman to Tingley. It's paved all the way to the bottom of Coleman there, I believe, and then it goes up the hill to the top there at Tingley. There's several houses here that go through, and eventually, you know, it'd be nice to connect this block here, and then actually to connect on Tingley, and then it's paved there. And then this year's project will actually be on East 7th, and from the intersection of Coleman up to, this is the intersection of Tingley up to Kruger. So that'll be tied in this year on there. So eventually, as we start working, we can get all those blocks. If everybody's been up there, you know that there's quite a few people use that to go around through the back roads and go through that backside. So those streets stay fairly busy in there. This one is our average block length, 360 foot by 34 foot wide, and an estimate of $36,000 to put in curb and gutter and sidewalk on one side. 15 is Locust from 6th to 7th, and we haven't had a lot of complaints on Locust. It just happens to be one of the blocks up on this other part of town here that there's probably like 3 blocks on there on this street on Locust that haven't been paved. So we just put them in here, added in order sidewalk and curb and gutter. 16 is just from 6th to 5th. Looking at doing the same thing on there. 32 foot wide, 31,000, and of course sidewalk on one side. And then so just so you'll know real quick, anytime we do any new monies like this and we put it down, we have to put at the intersection, all 4 sides of the intersection have to be ADA compatible. But we only are required to have sidewalk on one side. But in the future, if we ever came back and had the money to be able to put sidewalk on both sides, we'd be able to do that. And then it also encompasses us to be ready for meeting our ADA plans. As you can tell, they're all about the same price there on the thing. Number 18 is Glen from Rodeo Arena Road to the dead end. Most of the commission is aware of this, so you know we've received numerous complaints of dust on these streets and speeding and different kinds of things. This is the last one on the list. I actually put 38,000 on that, and that's for chip seal, in order to go in and do a chip seal road on there. And one of the problems that we have in all these areas here is there's no drainage on these roads. Everything is set to drain to Cuchillo Negro. So everything runs across there, runs across all these people's properties, and then when it gets to the end of Glen Street here, it is forced back and then down Rodeo Arena Road, and then from there back to towards Cuchillo and Winston and those areas, and then it drains into that little pond that's on the south side there. So for basically everything wants to go towards Cuchillo. When it gets there, it's coming back. So you know, we have problems with when it rains. It takes forever for it to drain because there's no type of drainage there at all. So, and I don't have one on there, but you know, we received some complaints today on Cary Street, and so if we take the numbers from Cary, it'd be about the same thing for us to 38,000 for chip seal and 68,000 for hot mix. Those streets are about the same number. It might be a little bit shorter, but we can use those same numbers for Cary Street too, if you care to add that on and make that number 19.
I think that was it, Doc.
Okay. Any questions?
Any discussion? Any questions?
I have several.
Commissioner Clark?
So, when I talked to somebody else just to get a random kind of opinion, one of the things, well, a couple of things came up, and I just wanted to throw them out, is that, there's certain places in our community where we've done X amount of streets, and then there's like one in the middle of a section that hasn't been done. So it's like, do we look at it for completing a neighborhood area? Do we go random, like who needs the most, which area needs the most by maybe the rainfall, those kind of things? Have we looked at the fact that truthfully downtown, and I'm saying this from personal experience, chip seal holds up a whole lot better than asphalt on that salty mineral water soil? Have we looked at the strategic planning? I mean, are we going for a neighborhood to complete that and then going to another neighborhood to complete that? Are we looking at, if we put in one street with paving and sidewalks, then there's just one street, and then on either side of it as you're driving down the runway is chip seal or dirt? Are we going to just plop one little random street in there with sidewalks that really can't be functional if there's no continuation? So these were just some thoughts I had. And then questions for you, Don. Is the 32-foot, that's still a pretty narrow road, isn't it? And I know the 23 is definitely narrow, but 32's...
That's your average block, any side street that you take here. If you walked out here on this one that's up in front up here, that's a 32-foot wide street. Yeah.
So each lane, normally a driving lane is 10 foot, so we'd have two 10-foot driving lanes, and then we've got 12 foot left, so 6 foot on either side for parking of a car or something like that. Okay. Have you ever looked at Turtleback Avenue? Isn't that owned by the city on the other side of the river? The only reason I bring that up is because whenever it rains, a lot of the people that live over there get stuck there. And I don't know if just, a chip seal in that little section that keeps creating a problem for these people would be worth looking at. And then the question to you is, did I hear you say that we've got $52,000? Basically, that was this year's amount of money. So that being said, what's your choice?
Well, if you want to go kind of in a block like what we've been talking, since we moved up to Kruger and been working in those areas up there, it might be nice to go ahead and finish West 8th and maybe finish Kruger area right there. And there's one other little block up in there that, it'd be nice to make all those and turn them in and get those all together on there. As far as the sidewalk, the last, we did probably 3 blocks or 4 blocks down around Iron Street, down in that area down there. And we received the same question, why is there curb and gutter around here? Do you guys have sidewalk on this? And it's like, well, part of the new thing is we have to have it. Eventually, so we'll be looking now with the help of Tracy Burnett, and we'll be looking for other funding sources and stuff, but part of the thing that we're working on now is an ADA plan for the city. So we'll be looking for other things so that eventually we can tie in all these streets to have the curb and gutter and sidewalk and that kind of stuff for us to be ADA compliant. So.
And Madam Mayor and Commissioner Clark, I'd like to address your first part of the question about maybe some of the members from the community asking, well, do we focus on the neighborhood? Do we focus on the north side, south side? I think several years ago, this is one of the reasons this list came about, because there were those questions that were asked about, well, how do we begin to prioritize these roads? And that's why a lot of these roads you see are how much are they traveled? Are they unpaved roads? And how many houses does it serve? And that's what Don pretty much put together a list of. That's what it's before you, because that's how this all came about, so that the commission in turn looked at all of those roads and what they serve and the condition, and make a determination of what road to apply the funding for. This is only local government road fund money. Obviously, hopefully there's other avenues that we can reach out to for other funding, and we'll talk about in the manager's report on downtown. But that's how this list was developed. If the commissioner at some point wanted to switch the way we select roads and focus 1 year on one area, that would have to be made a determination from the commission. But that's why the list is presented to you all as it is.
So Don, if, this isn't in priority from 1 through 16, because I heard you say it would be nice to do Kruger area and get that completed.
Yeah, so yeah, this was just, we started at one end of the city and just kind of worked this way and put in all the blocks that haven't been paved. So, and some of them, you know, there might be 1 or 2 houses on there that, you know, just with the continued maintenance of blading the road a couple times a year, you know, everybody's been happy with. So, but eventually, over time, we will end up having to put curb and gutter and sidewalk, and if not curb and gutter, at least sidewalk on a lot of these places to be able to make walking feasibility and just general safety for the public. If you're going to be out there walking on any of the streets, we give them a safe place to walk other than the street.
Thank you.
I like the idea too of completing an area before we move on to something else. That way they don't say, well, they started, why didn't they finish? You know, so, I mean, if that's feasible at all to complete. I know that all of our roads need some type of maintenance, and, you know, I wish we had a lot of money to fix everything all at one time, but I think that the best thing to do is to finish an area before we move to something else and make sure that that's taken care of. But that's my opinion, so, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may, just a thought on this end too. I'd like to concentrate, from my viewpoint, on those areas where we invite people in to deal with certain, you know, whether they go to the rodeo or to the golf course, and they have dirt roads to worry about and increased traffic. I think those areas we should concentrate on because we're inviting people into this community, and then the extra traffic is what causes issues with dust and things of that nature. So things of that nature. That's one thing I would be concerned with. The other thing is that, you know, there's so many roads out there that need attention and so many areas that need attention that I kind of like focusing on the downtown area a little bit. And, you know, we have a beautiful plaza area downtown now, and then you get on McAdoo Street and it looks like you're in Mexico. I don't mean to insult anyone, but the road is just terrible. And I don't know if those funds would be used for, you know, situations like that. I understand the underlying water issues and water line issues and things of that nature, but we invite our new residents and our customers and our citizens to our city offices all the time, and to get there they have to cross these roads, and I think they look terrible, and I think I would like to concentrate on the downtown area and clean that up, which I think presents a better focus and a better facet for everyone.
Mayor and Commissioner Heschler, as I stated earlier, I think this is specifically a local government growth fund which has been applied to these projects. The downtown I will address in my manager's report.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I would concentrate on those areas. I think that would that serve facilities like the rodeo area and maybe even the golf course, where we're trying to get people to come into our community, yet we have these old roads and dusty roads right around those facilities, and I'd like to get those cleaned up.
Thank you. Do we have any further comments?
Are we helping you?
Now we're going to put it back on your plate.
Do we need to make a decision or anything? Or?
Yes. Commissioners, yes, I believe for staff purposes and to apply for the local government growth fund, we need to identify a road, and typically, as we did last year, staff was given direction on which section, area, road to continue, whether it's, as Mayor Pro Tem suggested, continue and finish what we started already with Kruger and so forth, or to go somewhere else to another area. But that's the sort of action that the staff is asking for, based on the roads presented.
All right, do I have a motion to accept one of these roads, or?
If I may, based on the criteria that you guys have set forth, just explaining to me now, East 8th, Coleman to Tingley is one that we'd be looking at, that'd be finishing, wouldn't finish everything up in that area, but it would be, that would be one of them, and the other two would be number 2 and number 3, based on Veeder. because of the rodeo arena going and all the ball fields and all the concentration we're putting into the soccer fields and stuff in there, those would be the top three right there.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'll go with that one.
Thank you. Thanks for bailing us out.
So we'll look at that and see what we can do and what monies we get, and then we'll recommend all three of those, and then what monies we get, we'll adjust it to make that fit, with 8th being priority, and then from there to the ball fields.
All right. That was a motion and a second, right? You seconded that?
Yes.
The recommendations of John Armijo, our road supervisor. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Don. All right, the next item on our agenda is discussion action golf course management and operations. Terry Taylor, Golf Course Management. Front and center.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, Commissioners, good morning and happy Valentine's Day. Manager Fuentes asked me if I would come and speak to you and talk about some of the issues at the golf course, and so I've tried to prioritize those, and though I'll stand for any questions on them during those specific topics. If you have questions, then that'd be fine too. The first, I tried to prioritize these. The first issue that the staff at the golf course recognizes is the affluent water and the distribution system on the golf course. The distribution system on the golf course, when we spent quite a bit of money year and a half ago. We got a large sum of money, and we put some of that into parts for the sprinkler system. We have exhausted those parts now, and though we managed to buy small parts to repair sprinkler systems, we had a lot of interior cylinders that just dropped in, and we've exhausted, put all those in. The sprinkler systems, the city has changed somewhat their delivery of the affluent water. The affluent water used to, when we would test it, would test high in chlorine, and we didn't have a lot of algae and stuff in the affluent water. And their filter system at that time caved in, and we had to repair that. But this morning, just checking, we check the greens every morning. This morning, checking the affluent pond, there's a huge pile of, and I'll call it scale, that has come out of the pipelines from the effluent tanks up to us. And it's huge, because it has to run from the bottom of the tank almost all the way up to the pipe that delivers the water into the tank. And I took a picture of that, and I'll be visiting with Jesus Salandillo, and if that's a one-time event or if we're seeing an increase in that. But Jimmy, in repairing the sprinkler heads, he spends a ton of time working on clogged sprinkler heads. And sometimes we'll work on a clogged sprinkler head, and 3 or 4 minutes later, when he turns it back on, it just slowly dies down. So there's a ton of junk in the pipelines, and some of the commissioners weren't on board when we brought in the pipes that showed earlier what the interior pipes are. The course was formed in 1946, so it's over 70 years old. There's all kinds of pipes in the ground. Sometime when we added the affluent system, we probably didn't. I know there was the city added a filter system that didn't really do the job that it was supposed to. And probably the highest priority that we can have as an issue at the golf course is some kind of a filter system that will clean the water to a much better than it is. Is it a fix-all? Probably, as Les said, no, it's not a fix-all, because we've got the old lines that are in there. In my analogy, it's like giving an older guy a new heart when he has the same arteries and stuff in his body. It's not a fix-all, but it's something that we think that is essential right now. Also, we're going to have to put, some of the sprinkler systems are not repairable. They get clogged in the inner portions of them, and the parts. So we're probably going to find a real need for replacement parts for the sprinkler system. But the effluent water, the filter system, I brought that to the attention of the advisory board, and the advisory board has asked me to relay to you that they are very interested in co-opting some kind of, they don't know what they have in the dollar fund, so they really didn't give us a dollar number, but they're interested in doing some kind of a co-op program with the city to install some kind of a filter system into our affluent water distribution system. And that, to me, is probably the most essential thing. The second thing that we have that's probably high priority on the list is the clear water pond. The clear water pond pumps out of a well that's on the river, and that well has been down for over a year. And it's my understanding, talking to Jesus and Juan, that that's been lumped in with 2 other wells, I believe, that they're in repair, and that is either gone out to bid or is going out to bid to be retooled and get up the clear water pond. The clear water pond is essential for us because several things. Just last fall, we had the effluent water go down because of some testing with the wastewater, and that we weren't able to use it over a 2-week period. Had we had the clear water pond, that would have been an emergency backup. Also, the clear water pond is used, we like to use it as a flushing agent on the grass, so that we try to flush some of the salts out that we put on through the effluent pond. And we haven't had use of that. And I get asked the question, well, how long will that go? And that's a tough one. When does the grass stop responding to the water that you're putting on it if it's salty? It's my understanding that the clear water pond, and I don't know the timetable on that, is under a bid procedure to repair the well that supplies the water to it. The third thing is probably our old pumping system. We had a motor go down in the old pump house, and it was used as a backup to the new pumping system, and it's been down for some time, and I can't give you I just know that we've turned that over to Mr. Salandia and asked him that we needed that repaired. I can't give you an update on what that is. The fourth thing is the new pumping system operates very good, but when we had, for those of you who are here, when we had the filter system that failed in the effluent pond, and we had fish go through there, and we were pushing sushi out of the sprinkler heads, along with that sushi came chunks of plastic like that, and the only thing that I can figure is that's got to be part of the turbines in the new pump house. It's not affected it. We still put out a ton of pressure, for it, enough pressure that we break a lot of lines. But I think that someday we're probably going to look at we're going to have to, and in order to do that, we need the old pump in order to be able to take that offline and look at those motors and see if they are faulty. Commissioner Heschler approached me and asked me to provide a list of some beautification items, and I sent 7 or 8 of those through the city manager, and we were looking at those as low-cost items that we could possibly do to dress up the course. And those items, just referring back to them, some of them were repairing the fence that runs along Marie Street. Those poles have all rotted out. We put rebar behind them and stand them up and hope that somebody doesn't come and the wind doesn't blow too hard and they blow over. But they are rotted beyond repair, so that needs to replace. The cart paths, that was one of the things on the beautification item. Probably one of the things that was a little more expensive than what of some of the other things. And we were thinking that if we could get some pressure fines or something, we could partially repair the cart paths. Cart paths are all dirt in there, and they require, they just on a daily basis, they get to be pretty rough to ride on. The old apartment that's up by the clubhouse, that was one thing we identified that we would probably seek some repairs of it and some painting and cleaning up of the apartment building its thing. Somewhere down the road, those are the, like, things we need to do now, or some of them at least start through them. Somewhere down the road, we have a full-service liquor license at the golf course, but we don't have a clubhouse really that we can utilize those in. It's an uninsulated metal building that's hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and we don't get the outside trade that we should get for the city to fully utilize that liquor license. I know years ago there was talk of putting a complete new pro shop and clubhouse at the other end of number one, which probably, and I know that's a tremendous amount of money, but that liquor license cannot be fully utilized unless something like that is done. Or the existing one at least would have to get insulated and receive some kind of heating and cooling system that would be adequate for it. Just trying to think. That's the main issues that we look at today on a daily basis of how we're going to do that. Right now, for us, we try to go around. The main item for us is to keep things growing, and so we try to do our best to keep the sprinkler system that we have operating to the best that we can, and that includes a priority system of greens has to get water first, and then fairways get water in the second part of that. I've spoken pretty quickly about 4 or 5 different items. Probably the best thing for me would do just stand for questions that you might have, and that might help you out in some way.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are there any questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Hatcher.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. It seems that looking at some of the history of the golf course and the monies and the revenues generated and or paid, that it costs the city in excess of $140,000 a year to operate that golf course. Your receipts are, it looks like around 40,000 or so, give or take. These aren't exact numbers. What are you doing to mitigate some of that, and are we in a position, or do you feel like we're in a position to possibly, we're never going to be self-sufficient with that golf course, I understand that, but are you in a position, or can we turn some of that around so that the city isn't having to pay that much money for the golf course every year?
That's a tough one to answer. One of the things, I had a couple come out of Juarez, a professional couple come up from Juarez and play the golf course, and they had a great time, but we got into a lot of conversation, and the lady is the one that runs the largest golf tournament in all of the Juarez, and probably the largest one around, because they have all the maquiladores involved in it for along the border. And her comment, she kind of got puzzled and looked at me, and she says, we have 1.5 million people in one golf course. You have 8,000 or 9,000 in 2 golf courses. And that's the question. Where do we get the extra play from? In the 40 years I've been here, I don't see the snowbirds that were here many years ago. Is golf a dying sport? I pick up articles in the books that I get at the golf course. Wisconsin was just talking about that they're talking about what are they going to do on something where I doubt that there's anybody that's not subsidizing their golf courses that they have. I saw a report where Aztec was trying to look out of getting theirs. Picacho Hills, their owner gave an ultimatum to the members of the golf course: either buy me or I will turn the fairways dry and put them in housing districts. So can I tell you that golf's going to, the rounds are going to pick up? Not for sure. I don't think it would be truthful. I look at where the people that we have that are playing at the golf course, a lot of the people that we have either are, some of them are a little aged, and we've had a number of people that have quit playing the game. We've had a few that have moved off, and I can recognize at least 2 people that are playing currently at Sierra del Rio that were playing at our course. And one of those just doesn't want to play in the wintertime here, but prefer to play out there. So are we losing business? Is golf in general losing business? Is the younger people playing? I don't know. I can't answer that. I truly believe that almost all golf courses across the country, except a high percentage. Pebble Beach and some of the greater golf courses are, and they charge tremendous amounts of money to play those. Recently, I was at a golf course in Tucson that oversees in the wintertime there, and it was a very upscale golf course. It cost $150 to play golf there. That's not what we're about. We're about a small city golf course that's trying to provide the ability for the people that live here to play. And I think one of the things you have to look at is how many people move away from here if they don't have golf as a facility. I know there are several things that do not pay for themselves, and golf is one of them. But and our goal has been to try to mitigate the amount of money that the city has going out of its pocketbook. I felt like that was given to me as a mandate, and that's been our goal at the golf course, to try to run it as efficiently and low cost as possible.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, I noticed we haven't had any tournaments in recent years or the last couple of years. How do we address that as a revenue source, and should that be done?
It's not been because they haven't been offered. We offered 2 separate golf tournaments and that didn't fill, and we tried both ways. The first one we tried to offer at a very low cost with very little prize money associated with it, and we got no one hardly signed up for it. I think it was less than 10 people. So the second one, I approached a member of the community who had worked in the golf tournaments before and said, what do we do to fix this? So that was the last Fiesta. We went to the SDR out the lake, said, you have the ability to help us do a tournament. We can do a bigger tournament. It would cost a lot more to pay for it, but it would pay out some money too. We got nobody that signed up for that. So is it us that are chasing the people away? That can be argued, but it's not because they have not been offered. Those tournaments have been offered. So would it be nice, many of the people, including me, remember back over the years where the Fiesta and the TRC Open were the 2 biggest golfing events here in TRC. And one of the things the advisory board asked me to do last month was to identify the dates for both of those tournaments right now so they could go forward. And we had identified the 3rd week in August for the TRC Open and the week before Fiesta for the Fiesta Open. So those have been identified. They are scheduled. Whether we get the participation, I don't know. We have some people that will complain that there's no golf tournament, but their name won't be on the list when it comes time to signing that list to participate. So they've been offered is all I can tell you. Were they, did we do the best job of advertising it? Obviously not, or we would have probably got more people. We did not get people. No sign-up sheets are up. We've got we've got a few people at the golf course that they support the golf course almost anything. They'll sign up for any tournament we have. We know they'll always sign up, but we didn't get, the last one we did, we sent out notices to all the golf courses in the area, to Silver City, Deming, and Cruces, and Socorro, and we still did not get the participation that we sought.
Mr. Taylor, how many regulars would you say you have that come to play, weekly or however often they play?
Well, most all of the golfers are regulars. We do have, this time of the year, some snowbirds that come down. We've got a group from Minnesota that plays. It seems to me that we average, I would say, from 250 to 350 rounds a month is what is played at the golf course. And that includes cash-paying customers, members, and so forth. There are times when you can play in the afternoon and it's your own private country club if you really seek to use it that way. In the summertime, in the heat, we don't get a lot of afternoon play. We've got a couple of people that really like the heat that play in that, but not a lot of play in the summertime in the heat.
Thank you, Commissioner Heschler. Do we have any other discussion? Commissioner Clark?
Commissioner Heschler's question was how many regular people, not how many regular rounds.
I couldn't
25,
answer that.
maybe?
I'd hate to put a number on it. That might be accurate. The thing that we log is rounds per month. That is a number we could produce.
It's a good question, I thought.
Yeah.
Commissioner Heschler. My comments are this: I've been through when the effluent water wasn't even working, and we got it working again, and that was a nightmare. And the watering system at the golf course, in my opinion, is absolutely awful. And truly, to get the amount of water and to use the effluent system as it was originally designed, and or have it back up with the clean water pool and or the city water, so you could trade any one of those three. It seems to me that in order to do that, we're going to have to replace the irrigation system up there. And that's kind of like closing the swimming pool to replaster it.
No, it's bigger than-
I'm just talking. Whether we do that or not, whether that's our decision or we could replace it, hole by hole, I don't know. But there's some questions to think about. If that were the case and we had to just rework the golf course to get it more efficient so that we don't have this watering problem, so our greens can be maintained, our fairways can be maintained in the proper fashion that they need to be maintained with good, clean water, I think is the most important issue and criteria that we need to discuss about the health of our golf course. And then, what is the attraction? If we have 25 regular people, and is that more or less than 10 years ago? What's going on with the golf course? And you've thrown out the question, and there's no answer that I'm hearing. The other thing is if we did have to do a major rework on our golf course, could the regulars that are going there get a special deal from the city of Elephant Butte for their golf course in the period so that they still have the ability to golf, but give us the chance to do what we need to do on our golf course? So these are just thoughts that are coming to my mind while I'm hearing you speak. And just as an example, I used to live in a house in Orange, California, where the backyard was a 9-hole golf course. And that was a real hot spot to buy houses. I didn't own the house, but I was there. And I'm very disappointed when the city decided to close that 9-hole golf course. And they put in an entire walking, hiking, biking, riding park. And the place became packed with a different kind of people, but it was packed and it was well used. So it was disappointing for those of us that were golfers, but it was very exciting for other people for the recreation that it provided in a different fashion. That's all I have to say. I don't have a conclusion, it's just comments.
Well, a few comments about that. My job is to run the golf course, and that's what I concentrate on. But I recognize also that in the political scene and so forth, cooperation and contributions to other municipalities is there a better way of doing it? I think the lady from Mexico probably said it best. We probably have too many golf courses. Is there a way for Elephant Butte to extend to the people of Tier C a discount to where they would be comfortable in playing out there? And could the city donate to them? Could they offset that $140,000 loss with a less amount of money to going towards that? And could that be turned to a city park? Those are bigger questions than, obviously running the golf course are. But I think that as a realist, I look at those and say, yeah, those might be the answers to the golf course. I think one of the things that we've looked at for a number of the years, the people in the decision-making places, is Sierra del Rio going to stay alive? They have bigger pains than we do when it comes to talking about money to subsidize the golf course, much bigger pains. So if that closes and the city closes, I don't think I would want to be in a city. I understand you could probably be in one without a golf course, but I would think there was a lot of people. Your comments about living on a golf course, I read one time where 80% of the people that live on golf courses don't play golf. It's the aesthetics and the quality of life and living. Exactly. So, yeah, those are a lot of conversations. Mine right now is just trying to, on a daily basis, is what do we do to in the operation of the golf club course. This time of the year is the toughest time of the year because it goes through, we're in the dead winter of times where almost nothing is growing. Places in Arizona spend the money to overseed their fairways and have nice green fairways in the winter. Some of those places go out of operation for up to a month. I did not think that we wanted to spend $10,000 to $15,000 to overseed fairways and possibly be out of operation for a month just to get green fairways. There's a lot of people would like to see that. So to prioritize how you spend the money or instruct me to spend the money is probably what my business is to give you what the problems are and any probable solutions to those. But there are some major problems. You're right. That whole system needs to be gone through. We have probably 4 different kinds of pipe in the ground up there, and almost all of it's bad. We suffer water breakage on a weekly basis. We will average 2 to 3 water breaks a week. So that repair of the old water lines, it's a mess. The scales inside of it blocking it. But we do feel right now that the main thing we need to look at is some way to filter that water so that we can do a better job of delivering it upon the golf course.
One final comment, and sorry for taking so long.
Commissioner Heschler, go ahead.
No matter what we do with the golf course, whether it's going to be a golf course or a park or anything, that water system is going to have to be repaired. And I think we should make an effort to try to do that, or at least get us some prices and let us know what it's going to entail to get that done. That's the one thing I'm concerned with. The other thing I'm concerned with, and I'd like to ask Manager Fuentes and maybe his staff to do some research with other municipalities and their golf courses and see how much they subsidize or get subsidized, what the relationships are, how they make it work, or what their issues are, and maybe provide us some of that information and or any alternatives that you would recommend so that we can make an intelligent decision. And finally, is I know that we're up for a contract renewal, things of that nature, and I would like to buy a little bit of time and perhaps just, and I know that, I hope this is legal, but maybe extend the contract on a month-to-month basis for at least a couple of months in order to do that research so that we can either go to a new RFP or come to a decision what we want to do with that golf course.
Thank you.
We sort of talked about that yesterday, and I think actually the better idea at this point is actually not to take any action today. It was really basically a discussion today, and there's some legal issues I think the city manager and I are going to take a look at. So, you know.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? And Attorney Rubin, there is no action to be taken today, correct? This is just
I
a
don't think so.
discussion.
But that's what we talked about at the pre-agenda meeting. So,
Okay. All right. At this time, Mr. Taylor, we thank you for your presentation. And if we can be of any assistance and any help, please let us know. We're here.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, which is our last item, is item I3, discussion action, request for funds for USDA Rural Business Development Grant, Ms. Linda D. Marino, Main Street.
Good morning. Still. Almost.
You still got 10 minutes.
Yeah, barely. I'm Linda DiMarino, Executive Director of Main Street Truth or Consequences, and I also have Sazi, who's our president here, and Goober. So we are here because Main Street Truth or Consequences recognizes a problem that we have in town, and that is under-trained customer service employees. We submitted a grant last year, but we didn't get it because we didn't get enough points in the matching funds part. So that's why we are here. So one of the things that kills me is sitting in a restaurant and hearing someone from out of town say to the waitress, "Oh, where should I go soak? You guys have hot springs, right?" And then the waitress says, like, "I don't know, I've never been to any of them," right? We have so many assets in Sierra County. We have the ability to to train a lot of people, and it would benefit us in so many ways. So basically what this would look like is we would have 8 to 10 multi-day trainings. First day, basics of customer service, and also some role playing. And then the next day would be asset awareness, with the possibility of even having a third day optional asset awareness training. And by the assets we're talking about is taking them around to the hot springs, to the different restaurants, letting them do tastings at different restaurants, seeing what the different places look like, going to the Civic Center, the Convention Center, the Fair Barn, and then, you know, some of the other assets we have, the lake, things like this. Now, with USDA, you always get more points for bigger area. Like we did with our last USDA grant, this would be open to all the customer service people in Sierra County. So our goal is to get 100 people. We look to focus on the owners and managers of businesses first, just to get their input and also see how this could benefit their business and why they should send their employees. So the benefits of customer service training really is, I remember when I first got here, my dad came to visit, and I didn't really know much, and he was here for like 3/4 of a day, and I took him to everything that I knew. And at 3/4 through that day, he said, "What are we going to do now?" And I said, "I think that's it." Right? Now, if he came back here, I could keep him busy for a week. But I didn't know at that time, and I don't think that a lot of our people do either, and that's really no fault of their own. So we can increase people's stay here in town because there is so much for people to do. It also bodes well for people repeating visits back to town. This would cause increases in gross receipts tax, lodger's tax, and potentially jobs in those things. I mean, if you have good customer service employees, you're selling more, you're going to have more repeat business, you're going to need more employees. So I think that it's a total win-win thing all the way around. So what Main Street is requesting is $4,500 for this. We're still working out the numbers so that if there's any way of decreasing that amount and saving the city money, we'd be doing that. Anything?
I just want to add that this would be a certification program, so the employees would be, they would get a certificate at the end of the program, and also the businesses would be offered a certificate that if they sent their employees, so it would be a reason for them to want to come and motivate them to have something to show and potentially increase the value of this. And we would also produce products that could be used perpetually. We don't want to see this stop after this grant or this program or this cycle. We want it to be able to continue on and be a training program that can be adjusted and adjust with the times and with the asset, you know, as they're added and taken away. And so we would offer videos that could be used perpetually, and also packets with scripts and with different products for the managers to use perpetually. And also, thank you so much for recognizing the value of this. We really appreciate all that you do, for sure.
Thank you, ladies, for your presentation. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Clark.
Mayor Pro Tem, thank you, Commissioners. I had an opportunity to talk to both Linda and Sazi. So there's a few more things that I want to add. One is that the deadline for this grant application is March 1st, correct? So in order to find a match to help them out getting this grant, there was a little bit of a trick to it because of the timing of budget and or trying to apply for lodger's tax. So the other option is the convention center tax that we've been collecting for over 1.5 years, almost 2 years, that paid for a period of time for a tourist director. We don't have that person. We've got these funds. That this is a very good complement to what the convention tax money is. It's like people come into town, they've been invited to a convention, they love the convention, it goes around like that. So the trick would be for us to say to our city manager, yes, we would like to allocate a portion of those funds that we've got for the convention center issues to support this grant application. The other thing that I heard that I thought was extremely important is that the managers would be trained first of our hospitality businesses. So that being said, down the road as the employees turn over, and I loved Sazi's comment, it's just, we just trade employees from one business to another, so they go around. But the managers would have that consistent training for their employees, not just this year during the training period, but 5 years hence. And that's the intent of this, of having the written material. And if it's okay, I got permission from my city manager, but if I can get permission from Mr. and Mrs. Eastfold to either paraphrase your story that you told me just before this meeting started, or to let you go ahead and say it in your own words. Either way. Okay, thank you.
People have asked us, why did you move to Tier C? And we say, well, we like the people. We started coming here and staying at the Charles Inn quite a bit, and just talking to people and looking at the community. We really like the Healing Waters Trail, and we like the Rotary Park quite a bit, and the birds along the river. And then we began to get out and see that, gosh, there's wildlife everywhere here. And people were open. We really appreciate the meetings you have, the openness to public comment. I think that's excellent. We're from Albuquerque, and more the public involvement has become engineered and constricted to a certain direction. And so we really appreciate the openness of your government very much. And so,
Mr. Eastwood, you do have my permission to talk about my front desk person. That's
oh,
another.
well, we also very much like the people that set you up there at the Charles, and particularly one pet called Lady Gaga, who now has her own Facebook page. If you haven't checked it out, you really should.
Thank you, Mr. Eastwood. So the comment there was just to add to how important it is to have that front person wherever it is, whether it's in the restaurants or the hiking trails or the visitor center or the hotels where people stay, that we get lucky every once in a while and people will buy a piece of property here too. It's not necessarily just come and visit and go back to where you came from. So I really appreciate the effort of you two. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. You're welcome. Do we have any further discussion?
One quick comment, Mayor Pro Tem. Coming from an industry that relied on referrals and really appreciated referrals from other communities and businesses, and then being able to refer those people back to other community businesses themselves was really important to the survivability of all of our businesses, and so I would be in support of this very much so.
Thank you. I stand for a motion to accept the request for funds for USDA Rural Business Development Grant as presented by Linda DiMarino and Sazi Mari.
So moved.
I have a motion
I second.
and a second. I have a motion and a second for the approval of the request for funds for USDA Rural Business Development Grant as presented. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning, or almost afternoon, is J1, City Manager Report.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I'll keep it very brief. Want to share with the Commissioners a project that Tracy, along with our Police Department, they're working on with a engineer, Wilson and Company, and that is a New Mexico DOT MAP program for funding for an actual arterial road. And what we're looking at is applying for road money from 3rd Street, from Dade going west on 3rd Street. And again, we talked about the local government road fund, the limited funding that provides. and we identified some roads there. This is a different kind of program that ties into major arterial roads, and that's why we identified this as a road for that project. So it's still in the application phases, but Tracy will be working with Wilson and Company as well as our street department. So that will be forthcoming down the road with more information and updates. Also wanted to share with the commissioners where we are at with our legislative priorities. And for the Cook Street water system, we have a pending application for Colonias, and that the decision on that is to be determined. So we're focusing on that. On the water distribution line, we are in communications with the New Mexico Environment Department, I believe, for a drinking water state revolving fund application that we will be submitting our application for interest, and that's to replace some of our water distribution system. And right now it's still preliminary work that Tracy and Arnie and Jesus are working with the funding agency as well as finance department, getting the information needed for our initial application. So that, again, that's in the works. For the downtown street improvements, in the legislative priorities, the commissioners identified downtown streets as being the #1 priority. So we did seek out legislative appropriation, and I'm pleased to say that under House Bill 306, we do have $100,000 identified for road improvements, specifically, hopefully, for the downtown. So that is going through, I believe it's in the, today is the last day for, I believe, well, the bill is in the Senate floor today. So hopefully, if the capital outlay bill is approved, then it will go before the governor for her signature. So we do want to thank Representative Dow for, you know, her share of contribution for this project of the $100,000. Now, what this is important is because we also looked at, we will be transferring back, as you all may recall, when we made the swimming pool a #1 priority for this year to get it resurfaced so we can get it recertified. We had originally identified funding for downtown streets from the city's match-owned coffers that we moved over to get the pool fixed, and that has already been completed. The bill has been paid, and so we're going to transfer back $50,000 back to the street fund. So once we get this allocation of $100,000 plus the $50,000, and maybe we can reach out to some of the downtown businesses that might be able to contribute a little bit more, we can have a big project to try to do as much as we can in the downtown core area. So I just wanted to share that, you know, those plans are in the works. So hopefully we'll be receive good news on the infrastructure side, but those applications are still in the process. And that's all I wanted to kind of give the commissioners a quick update. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager Fuentes. Next report is City Attorney.
No report, thank you.
No report. Next, we have commissioners. I have no report. Commissioner Heschler, report. Commissioner Clark.
Just one comment. I wonder if it would be a good idea for this city manager or commission to write a thank you letter to Representative Dow. She only got like X amount of dollars, and to take that much and to funnel it towards us was quite a nice, thoughtful thing, I think. So I don't know how you feel about it, but maybe that would be nice.
Mayor and Commissioner Clark, I know Mayor Green did email her a thank you, but I think a letter will certainly follow
Yeah, a
as
piece
well.
of paper with a stamp. Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. No report? No report. Okay. At this time, we're done with our reports. The next item on our agenda is K, executive session. We have two items. K1, threatened or pending litigation, City versus McGeechee, pursuant to 10-15-1H7. And K2, threatened or pending litigation, City versus HDL, pursuant to 10-15-1H7. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion that we go to executive session after a brief recess.
And a second, do I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call roll?
Honorable Steve Green is absent. Honorable Sandra Wayhead.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eschler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Joshua Franco.
Yes.
Motion carries after a brief recess. Brief